Jamie, can you try your audio?
Okay, good. Yes, you do have to have it. Bring the mic closer. Booming voice. There's feedback here.
All right, can you guys hear me online now?
Yeah, but he's gonna mute his.
There we go. All right, we'll do one more time. If you cannot hear us online, please reach out and we will get it sorted. And with that, we will call the meeting to order. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a couple esteemed guests. We're excited and we welcome you and thank you for joining us, giving up your time. We have two counselors out sick, so it is just us this evening. If you want to make public comment, go ahead, the sign-up sheet's on the podium if you have not done so already. And with that, Mike, you want to do roll call?
Councilor Petrie,
Here.
Councilor Manel,
Here.
Councilor Trolley is,
Should be
planning on being online. He is online. Councilor Trolley, we just tried to promote you to panelist. Councilor Thompson,
Here.
Councilor Paulson. Here. Fender.
I am here. All right.
Oh, Councilor Moore.
Councilor Moore.
Councilor Moore.
Is-
Not gonna make it tonight, or?
She's not.
Okay.
All right, thank you. First up on our agenda is the approval of our minutes. We have the February 15th, 2023 work session and regular city council meeting minutes. They were attached to the agenda. Do we have any desired discussion over the minutes?
I move for approval of the February 15th, 2023 work session and regular city council minutes.
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes as moved? Raise your hand. And then,
Trolley, you want to raise your hand?
I guess we can't see him, so Mike, I think all, you will be in charge of, interacting with Councilor Jolie for purposes of record keeping, please.
Who was the second on that?
Mark Manon.
Okay.
All right. The minutes are approved. All right, moving on. So we have our special presentations tonight. First up on the agenda is Metro Councilor Rosenthal, and please join us. And again, we thank you for giving up your evening with us.
Thank you. I appreciate being here very much. Mayor Fender and esteemed council, it's a pleasure to be here to report to you all the things that Metro's doing, most of which I hope you approve of, and I never can guarantee anything like that, of course. I also,
He moved to the front.
This is our District 3 team, Eduardo Ramos, and he's the policy advisor, so he puts together the slides and stuff like that. He's very critical in the whole thing. Anyway, Metro is all about collaboration and making the region a better place, and so we want to meet with the mayors and councils just to sort of update them on what's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. So, do we have slides?
We did?
Correctly, we have a slide for Diana. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not our usual.
That's all right.
Technology doesn't always work quite as smoothly as we wanted to.
Exactly. But, you know, it really was my fault because I shouldn't have said anything because we had it up and then I pointed out that I couldn't see the participants, so I apologize. Next time I'll
There you
keep my
go.
mouth shut.
I had it.
Yeah, I moved to.
You had it, it was there.
Go back.
Went the wrong way.
Yeah, when you move to the right, it kind of, yeah.
Oh, there we are.
Wonderful.
Of course, now I have it.
That first slide incidentally was taken at the Viewfinder, which was opened last year. It's a supported housing unit over in Tigard, not too far from here. Anyway, proudly serving district, yes, okay. Land use conversations. First of all, as you know, we approved the UGB addition to Tigard, which is important because it pairs with the Kingston Terrace development that you guys are doing. I also want to mention, you know that the SB4 was passed, which is this potential addition, or I should say breaking of the urban growth boundary if the governor finds that there are unusual circumstances necessary, economic circumstances. Metro took, I mean, obviously we're concerned about the potential land use implications, but of course we also believe that that governor needs to have the opportunities to take use of CHIPS funds if there is some particular benefit to the region for employment and jobs. So we said, you know, we've put some sideboards, so it's only going to be good for a few, you know, a couple of years, and so it's somewhat limited, so we feel comfortable with that. But just to let you know that that was a big deal. Let's see. You can move up one more slide if you can. All right. Down a little bit. All right. Safe streets for all. I mean, King City is lucky not to have too many old state highways, although you do have Highway 99. Metro got a $2.5 million grant, mostly to go to places such as Hall Boulevard. In the main area in District 3, it'll go to places like 82nd and other areas where you have these old relic, and Powell Boulevard where you have, the state still owns it, but it's really an urban street now. So that's one thing. Housing investments. Our original goal, as you know, the housing bond was passed in 2018, and the original goal was to build 3,900 units. It looks like partly because we got better interest rate deals during the pandemic, and you know, the pandemic was a terrible thing, but there were some benefits from that, and so we may be able to get up to 4,700 units with the same money. So that's a positive. They're going in all over the region, as you know. I just mentioned the Viewfinder. They're planning on another one in Tualatin. There's a facility opening up in Aloha this next week. It's a major opening, the Aloha Terrace Apartment, which is a conversion. So they're going in all over the region. If you look at the maps, you'll see them all over, and that's a very, you know, it's a very good thing. And people are moving into these units. So it's not a full solution, but it's a work in progress. The SHS, let's see, housing investment. The SHS tax response. Now, I still get people commenting on that. As you know, we passed the SHS tax. It's a 1% tax on people making over $125,000 and a 1% on the marginal income of companies making over $5 million. There was a bit of a screw up, let's just call it that, when it was rolled out, because for practical reasons, Metro put the taxation, the actual rolling out the taxes and notifying people to the city because they already had the structure. It made sense. And we didn't want to create a whole new taxing authority. Unfortunately, some of the notifications didn't go out correctly, so Metro decided to waive all the interest and penalty fees for 2021. And so we've sent out cards to everybody regarding that. I still get, in fact, I just got 2 letters the last day or so, people complaining, why are we doing this? And I have to explain. There's a whole bunch of precedents here, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. It doesn't always work as smoothly as we would like. So, the next slide, please. I do want to add on the SHS, it'll generate about $240 million per year. We've already gotten about 1,200 people off the streets and assisted about 3,000 more people with one-time or short-time assistance with rental support so that they don't get out on the streets. Some people, you know, they'll lose a job and they'll have a month or two where they need some assistance. So there's about 3,000 people that are being supported in that way. So it's having a positive effect so far. Again, like housing, it's a long-term process. And the big thing I tell people is that the reason it took a little while to roll out is there's a staffing shortage. And then we had to get all the counties to agree to a similar intergovernmental agreement so that all the counties were doing it somewhat similarly. So that took a little while. Not all the counties were entirely aligned to start with, as you may know. Okay, Southern Region venues. The OCC is an economic driver in the area, and it's driving the local economy. It's very good. The bookings are back up. One of the big things is the National Education Association booking for 2025, which will bring a lot of people. It'll supply the hotels. It'll be a major benefit. P5 is getting back to full use. The Keller is getting back to use. There's I think a couple of new musicals that are coming, but the Keller needs long-term investment. It's the oldest of the venues. It has, let's just say, earthquake-wise, it's not particularly sound. So we're working on ways to try and figure out how to make that more ready. And one of the questions is, do we just make it seismically stable, or do we try and build a new facility? That decision has not been made, but it's being discussed. The zoo completed a 10-year bond, and on schedule and on budget, and now we're trying to revise with the zoo. What more can the zoo do? What other things can do with the zoo? It's had quite a bit of positive results, particularly with condors, with otters, with this new, beobuck, which is an antelope from Africa that was highly endangered. It was down to like 18 members. And so we just had a birth at the zoo. And there's also the pond, and we're working on the otter program so that we can control the urchins, so we can bring back the kelp forest, so we can have better diversity off the coast. So there's a lot of stuff. We did lose a very favorite black bear that died this last week due to cardiac arrest, which is, everybody's very sad about that. The pandemic created a much more robust zoo life. I don't know if many of you did. I didn't get the chance to go, but I gather it was quite nice. Everybody likes zoo lights. I mentioned the success. The other thing I just want to mention is the Expo Center. We're undergoing a regional study to figure out what to do with the Expo Center, and there's three components to that. We want to maintain the trade shows that we have, but we also have to do something about the older buildings. They have to be revised. There's a lot of, they're very old, but we also have to be very careful, and we are very careful about the Japanese American community, because they were interned in one of the buildings, Building A, I believe, and then also the people who were affected by the Vanport flood. So there's two buildings that have a great deal of historic importance. The neighborhood groups and the groups affected by that are working on plans to figure out that. We're moving toward having a regional, what you might call a sports facility, not something that's going to house a baseball team, but something that's going to house like regional volleyball tournaments and things like that. That's the current idea and the current plan. Let's see. That's the venues. Cleanup efforts. There's a couple things to talk about on the cleanup efforts. Let's see. Are we on slide 3? Yes. Our cleanup efforts include both what they call RID Patrol and then the regional refresh. The RID Patrol was badly affected by the pandemic, as you know, and we got down to about a 60-day turnaround. Now we're back up to 3 days. And so if you have problems, call RID Patrol and they'll schedule and come out and clean up something that you have. Of probably more importance to a city like King City is the regional refresh, which provides small grants to local groups up to $5,000 if they want to, say, get rid of graffiti. And we have the regional paint program, which will supply paint if you want to just paint over something or provide a beautification. So any local groups that have a small regional project, we have this grant. We've already given out, I think 200 and, it's something like, we've given out to 65 groups, it's about 265,000 that we've given out in this regional refresh. So it's a very useful program, particularly for the smaller communities. Just have to apply for it, that's all. And then we've also come up with an innovation and I&I grants, which provides up to $500,000 per capital. This is for groups throughout the region that want to improve recycling. Most of them actually tend to be in the central Portland area, whether it's materials reuse or whether it's composting, but some of them are on the periphery. So we're in the process of reviewing those. This year we had, I think it was $4 million to award, which could be 4 or 5, 6 grants. We had some 30 applications. We're whittling it down. We've got it down to about 12. And so it's a process. We create jobs, we support creating jobs. Of course, this is through P5, this is through the convention center, and this is through, you know, supporting general economic development. We are advocating alongside our regional partners on land readiness, which is one of the key factors in getting industrial redevelopment in our area. So that's when working with the cities on any industrial lands or even residential lands, getting people here. Businesses decide on where to go primarily on the labor force and the people and that sort of kind of consideration. So having land available for people to live in and having a good labor force, people who are educated and know how to do the jobs, is a critical element. So we've been working with that, and there's a lot of work to do. The legislative session is working on this. There's a task force. I'm not on it, but there's a task force. And we may have once-in-a-generational funding opportunities. We don't know exactly what they'll be yet, but the legislature, the SB 4 was passed particularly to make sure that if they come around, we have some ways to capitalize on that. The next one, please. 240 planning and development grants. We're entering the 2040 planning and development cycle again. Staff is in conversation to potentially allow they haven't figured out how to do this yet, to potentially allow smaller cities to use these grants to actually provide the staff. The smaller cities often don't have the capacity to rapidly add staff to do the 2040 planning. So this is not a problem that Portland has. Portland has enough staff, they can tickle things around. So we want to make sure that it's available for the smaller cities, but doesn't get misused accidentally by the larger cities. So that's something we're working on. The regional refresh, I already noted that $5,000, previously up to 265, we've done for 65 different groups. Small community building grants, these are small grants to local entities. For example, we want to have a festival and need a little support, little publicity and so forth. So we're supporting those. One just came across the desk yesterday. AFNI, which is the Native American Association, asking for a festival in the Portland area, something that we support. These are usually go through the individual departments, whether it's parks or solid waste or whatever. If you have a local community, if we want to have just a solid waste education party, right? Ask for the money, and I think solid waste would say, yeah, it's a good thing. We can usually give up to about $2,500. It varies. And then finally, Parks and Nature major grants. Those are open until May 2nd. I'm sure your staff knows all about those, and I don't know if you've supplied an application on that. Let's see, funding opportunities. All right, next slide. Amplifying your voice. Obviously, there's a lot of regional discussions going on. We have to redo the population estimates. Metro has a good record of coming up with pretty good population estimates. Our housing estimates are usually pretty good, but there's a lot more uncertainty this year because we have the state legislation that allows more infilling, plus we have, as you know, more density in most of the developments that are going in because the market has changed. So rather than 6 or 7 units per acre, we're talking about 15 to 20 units per acre. And this is true particularly on the west side in King City, in Tigard, and probably also in Sherwood and Beaverton. So the 2040 plant, or the 2040 grants, and transportation is another big issue. We're updating the 2018 regional transportation plan. That's a big deal. A lot of things have changed. People's commuting has changed. We have a great deal of needs. We have a couple big projects, which is the 205 bridge and the interstate bridge. Plus, we have an ODOT proposal on tolling, which could affect everybody in this region in one way or another, and it's a little unclear from their proposal exactly how this is going to roll out on a regional basis. So that's a big deal. Plus, obviously, there's still an effort and a desire on our part to get more money and more attention paid to 99W, which is something that is always never quite, it sort of, everybody mentions it, but it never quite rises quite high enough to what we would think it should be. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and just a constant keeping people aware that there's a lot of cities that are concerned about this. The Sherwood and Tualatin, King City and Tigard are all very concerned about this. Let's see. And then I mentioned already the CHIPS Act and the potential for land readiness and development of potential larger sites. Don't know how that's going to roll out, but we'll see what happens in the future. My understanding is most companies are, what we did in the legislature, this is my opinion, makes us look like we're ready, but it doesn't provide a huge amount of incentives. Cities or the companies that do it, they'll do it because we have technology out here. We're the Silicon Forest, and because we have other businesses and an educated labor force. So we'll see what happens in the next year. Ongoing communication. Not sure what to say there, except hearing back from the councils. As I tell people often, me telling you what we're doing is less important than you telling me what you want us to do. Regional coordination, regional collaboration is very important. So, critique is often more informative than, just agreement and so forth. So together we can get more done. We appreciate your active participation, and the more partnership, the better. If you're not getting support from our staff, let me know. My understanding is you are working with our staff on a pretty active basis. Which is great, and we're, of course, we're in the process of reviewing your plan for Kingston Terrace. You have that meeting coming up, and then we hope to have a letter supporting your plan so that you can go forward with this development in the near future. So together we get more done. So to me, it's an honor to represent you at the regional level. It's an honor to represent all the cities in this district. Everyone is different. Everyone has special problems, different personalities. It's great. It's very interesting. So the more you tell me, the better I can do a job for you, and I will be happy to do so. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or defer them to Eduardo.
We lean hard on Eduardo. Thank you. Well, Councilor, thank you very much for that brief, informative update. I know I have a few questions, but I'll hand it over to my colleagues and let everyone else ask questions first.
I'll go first. Sure. I'm intrigued about this regional refresh grant. This is the first I've heard of it. I'm not sure if anyone else on the council has heard of this, but it seems like something that our community could use. How challenging is it to get one of these grants? What is the process?
I'm going to turn that over to you.
Well, this fund was created through a $10 million investment from the state, and we are working to continue that program. And District 3 is actually one of the districts that receives the least amount of funds. So Council Rosenthal and I have been working with staff to prioritize projects that request funding from this grant specifically to come to District 3. And so I would highly encourage the city to request it. If you have some community organizations and neighborhood associations who could benefit from it, to also loop me into the conversation so we can move your application.
The $10 million allocation was made last session, and we used a lot of it. It was dedicated, certain portions for certain. We used a lot of it to do immediate cleanup. One of the things was because of last summer's, athletic events in Eugene and trying to clean up the freeways and so forth, things like that. So if you contact me or you have a group, we'll get it to the solid waste, the WPES, and see where they are at in the process.
And the application is fairly simple, so I can forward that to your staff, and then you can just, again,
And I'll just piggyback off because my questions also had to do with that. Is the grant application, does it come from the cities and then the cities determine through the criteria who to then disperse the funds to, or is it organizations applying directly to Metro within District 3 for the grants?
it can be either a city-led project or a community organization leading.
Does the community organization have to be a nonprofit?
I can get clarification.
Okay, and I think what, I'll follow up offline with you after, because as I think all of us know, we've had kind of an uptick in graffiti, which is particularly challenging here because the graffiti isn't just, right, limited to city property. It's, right, obviously, and then we have a very large number of HOAs. And so it's complicated because, right, the graffiti ends up
Yeah.
Who's gonna clean that up and who has the ability to clean that up is a large challenge here. So I think, I have a few good ideas, now that I know this is wonderful. So we thank you, and, I'll follow up offline
Just
with
ask
that.
a quick question really quick. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this was pertaining to solid waste, right? So like you could do like bulky item pickup day or electronic recycling day or something like that. Where is the flexibility for what these funds can be used to?
I think they're pretty flexible. It has to do with solid waste and, litter and appearance sort of things.
Mm.
I mean, it's not for tree planting particularly, or something like that, but I think you're right, it could be used for that if you had if you wanted to have whether it's a nonprofit or.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll just clarify that, what City Manager Weston, brings up about the hazardous waste collection. That's a separate program that, the Waste Prevention and Environmental Services, I always want to say WPES, but, not everybody knows what that acronym stands for. So that department, hosts events, throughout the region. We actually just had an event in Tigard, and we're hoping to bring one to Wilsonville, in the fall. And so that is a separate thing where we show up at a parking lot and collect all of these materials that people have been, don't know how to properly dispose of. And so these funds, as Councilor Rosenthal said, are more flexible and oriented to that immediate action and potentially an initiative that the city can lead. Graffiti is definitely something that our District 3 communities have mentioned. So we're already working with the City of Tigard to try to think of maybe the Regional Refresh Fund or any program that maybe we can cobble together with Metro Paint to also have resources pulled for.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, hazardous waste takes some extra planning. You can't just clean it up and put it in bags and haul it to the nearest one.
We had last year, and we will do it again this year, but we had a community kind of bulk item, kind of recycle, reuse, and we looked at kind of, but I think for this one, we will definitely, I know the organization will definitely reach out to contact, because that was something we wanted to provide, but we just couldn't put it all off last year, so. Other questions?
Good. I just wanted to come back to the housing investments, because I think I missed this. I wanted to know how much was invested, or how much has been invested so far in the housing investments program?
About half, I think. We're about halfway through the process. You mean, the bonding money?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bonding money was for $625 million, and I think we're about halfway through of allocating it. Not all of it has been spent. I mean, some of it is you make a commitment to the project and it doesn't get immediately allocated. So I can't tell you exactly, but we're about halfway through. It'll peak again in a year or two, and then it's going to drop off fairly quickly because everything will be committed.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Any questions?
I have the same question on the bond.
Wonderful. I have no other questions. I'll follow up. And again, we appreciate your time tonight and always enjoy. Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. I'm gonna
Just one more.
Yeah, of course.
It's funny, because I wrote notes about it and I wanted to ask you. So going back to the homeless, the housing tax, you said that it brings in about $240 million a year, and it's serving about 3,000 people.
Well, about 3,000 people have gotten what you might call short-term interim assistance. About 1,200 people have been brought off the streets. The allocation of the $240 million, about, I think it's less than 5% goes to Metro for just making sure there's regional coordination. And then it goes like on a population basis to the counties. And then the counties distribute that money. Some of it goes in staff, and they've had problems, hiring staff. It's been a staffing shortage. And some of it goes to nonprofits who already provide services, whether it's Central City Concern or whether it's the First Start, what's the head, I forget the name of it in Tigard for youth, that START community where they have the housing. So that's how it goes. And what was your question again?
Well, my question is, it seems like it's a very large amount of money that's coming in every year, a very small, in my perception.
Impact.
Yeah.
Well, the reason for the impact is not, hopefully the impact is going to grow because it took, first year we had to set up the taxing structure, and there wasn't any money coming in because you have to wait till the next tax cycle before you start getting money. So we set up the intergovernmental agreements and got all the counties to say, all right, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to give you the data, et cetera, et cetera. And then, once the money started flowing, and we loaned some money to some of the counties to start the process of hiring, then of course it takes a while to hire staff and get them on. So we really are just sort of after the first half year of really active movement on this, hopefully, and there is a dashboard on our website that will give you that it'll proceed a lot more rapidly now that we actually have things in place.
Good,
So,
thank
So-
you.
yeah, it looks slower. I mean, yes, it's a startup. It's something new that hadn't been done before, so it takes a little while to get it ramped up.
Any other questions? And, Counselor Otoli, if you had any, questions or comments, we'll just wait a moment to hear from you. This is always the clunky part of the evening, right? They're going through this hybrid, but we take the time because it's helpful
I
to.
was having trouble earlier.
All right, so, I can extend his thanks, on his behalf, because I know he would thank you if he was here. So again, thank you guys so much. Have a lovely, you are of course welcome to, stay with us through this evening, but we won't hold it against you if you leave, and, we thank you for your time.
Again, thank you for your time and for your questions particularly. Appreciate that.
All right, great, thank you.
Rachel should be online, and she should have just been promoted to panelist.
Okay.
hopefully.
Wonderful. So on Zoom joining us is Rachel Schutz who's the Executive Director of the Washington County Family Justice Center, and she's going to provide us with their annual report. And good evening, Rachel. We can't see you very well on here, just the way the screens are. So if it looks weird on the screen, it's just because it's a little clunky in the room, but, and let's see if we can hear her okay.
We're gonna work on that.
Okay, so if you just give us a second, we're working through some technical difficulties here. Oh, and now we see your face on the screen, wonderful. And we will just wait a moment.
Can we test audio? Rachel, can you try talking?
Hi, guys.
Oh, we can hear you. All right, wonderful.
All right, this is like I'm on Broadway.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we welcome you, and we look forward to your updates.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. Thank you, Mayor, and all the counselors. It's really nice to see you. Really, I'm watching myself talk at this point, but it was nice to see you before when I was just watching the webinar. Thank you for having us every year. I really appreciate it, and we're excited to update you about 2022. I know you all have a copy of our annual report, and I just wanted to take you through some of those pieces. And then, of course, you know, any questions that you guys might have or discussion, we can definitely dive into. So in 2022, I think the biggest thing to share, and probably the biggest thing you noticed, was our dramatic increase in survivors seen and services provided. And so over the year, we actually saw, again, dramatic, a 200 and almost 40% increase in the number of survivors that we served, and over 320% increase in the number of services that were provided. One of the things is, you know, like if we were a different kind of organization or a different kind of business model, that would be really exciting. But for us, that's not exciting, unfortunately. But what I like to take heart in is the fact that people are starting to know where to go. And that's one of the most important things. I think the coming off of 2021 and 2020, when the pandemic really had a lot of things shut down, what we saw in 2022 was sort of the aftermath of that. Once the schools started reopening and folks started going back to work, and really sort of the world opened up where you could move around more freely from, as opposed to being sheltered in place and children had to stay home and all those sorts of things, we started to see the impacts. Across the board, we have seen an increase in the rates of violence and abuse, increase in both domestic violence as well as child abuse. And then also, unfortunately, one of the challenges has been that we've seen, I guess, worse cases. And the reason that is because folks just had to stay in one place for so long. And so, unfortunately, what that has looked like is, one, more people needing services, and then two, across the nation, and then also, unfortunately, in Washington County, we are on a very high trajectory for domestic violence related homicides. So in Washington County, the majority of our homicides are domestic violence related or family violence. And unfortunately, we're at an all-time high for those things. So while I say that our numbers going up is not good news, I take heart in it because if we know that those things are happening coming out of 2021, what I want to see is our numbers coming up. That means that more people are knowing where to go in the face of a great deal of stress in our communities and our country at this time. And so in response to that, we did also targeted outreach. Coming out of the pandemic, we knew that this was going to be something that we needed. We also knew that folks were experiencing a great deal more isolation. And so we needed to do outreach specifically to ensure that people knew where they needed to go and make sure that we could reach those populations that we needed to target that potentially needed more services. And so over 2022, we did intentional outreach to our rural communities as well as our Hispanic and Latino communities. And what we saw over 2022 was that our clients coming from rural communities increased by 26%. And then our Hispanic and Latino communities coming to the Family Justice Center increased by 67%. And so I'm pleased to say that we were able to reach those communities. And what's most important is they trusted the service enough and the center enough that they came, even though that is a very hard barrier to overcome. In response, we also implemented several new programs to ensure that folks were getting their needs met as they came to the Family Justice Center. And we also did several large events, community events, to also meet that need. One of my favorite ones was we partnered with ODHS and Huggies and got a truly massive donation of diapers. I still can't believe I said yes. I think I said yes because I didn't know what I was getting into, but we had well over 40,000 diapers that were delivered to us, and we were able to distribute to all of our partners and also our community. And they are all gone, which is amazing to me, but it just taught me what a high need diapers are in our community. We had people lining up outside of our doors to come pick up those diapers. And the other thing that we were able to do is we did Thanksgiving boxes this year. So we gave out over 200 full meal Thanksgiving boxes to survivors, both in shelter and then also in the community and throughout all of our partners' programs. And so that was a really fun event. We got to, pack all of those and distribute them. So that made a big impact, and we will absolutely be doing that again this coming year. So in the raw numbers, we served 4,537 survivors and provided them with 8,344 services. As you all know, the Family Justice Center, what we are both proud of and is the value of the Family Justice Center is we have the agencies that are providing the services in Washington County for survivors located in a single location. And so we currently have 18 partner agencies that are operating out of the Family Justice Center. And that is the reason why we have such higher numbers of services provided per survivor. And so we were able to increase the number of services that folks were able to access through the center, which is also a really great benefit, and I was proud of in this past year. To the King City. So for King City this past year, we served 9 King City residents with 15 services. And we had this conversation last year, but just as a reminder, only about a third of our participants will identify where they are from. And they typically identify by zip code. And so people that are identifying themselves as potentially part of Durham or part of Tigard, they could all be sort of in the mix together. It's also the case that folks from small cities are much more hesitant to give their location. There's much less people, and as is our services, a lot of people are afraid that they will be sort of noticed. But even still, that was a 200% increase over last year. And so I am happy to know that folks in King City, when they need help and support, they are able to access the Family Justice Center. We saw a big increase in our communities of color served, which also has to do with our intentional outreach, but also I'm very pleased to see that, knowing the level of trust that needs to be built in order to access the center. And so currently, as we have seen services starting in 2023, we're on track to either meet or exceed the number of survivors served and services provided in 2023 as well. So I'll sort of stop there from our review and see if anybody has any questions.
Well, thank you, Rachel. You know, I'm a huge fangirl of both the center and you as at the helm, and we just applaud all that the Family Justice Center does, and all that you do with your outstanding leadership of that center. I think I'll hand it over to everyone else here. I think my overarching question though is really, how can we as a city, us as counselors, us as a community, support the good work, the vital work that you guys are doing? What more can we do for you?
Well, that's a great question, Mayor, and I appreciate that. I mean, I know you are always at all of our events, and that is fantastic. We love that. And we will continue doing those. We have another event coming up on April 3rd, which is our gala. But I think one of the things that has really proven to work, and I know you guys did this too, but putting information about the Family Justice Center into utility bills or city newsletters or just sort of ubiquitous city materials, so that there isn't a fear of accessing information about the Family Justice Center. One of the things that is really easy about us is that our phone number works 24/7 and can access all of our partners' crisis lines 24/7, including our police. And so it's really easy to memorize a phone number if you see it quickly. And so it's really worked for particularly smaller cities to put just quick information about Family Justice Center in those bills that go into every household, because that is something that just sort of lives in the background of a house, and you don't have to seek out information about Family Justice Center, which could notify somebody in your house that you may not want to notify, that you are trying to seek services for abuse. And so that would be a big help that you could provide to your citizens so that they know where they can get services if they need it. And you guys have always, ever since the first day that we were opened, you have financially supported us. And so that has been a huge blessing and continues to be, and just shows what an incredible commitment King City has to the Family Justice Center. I think the only other thing I would add is, if there are specific places in King City that there should be information posted about the Family Justice Center, let me know, and we will get that information over, whether it's flyers or cards or making sure that there's posters. One city I worked with wanted a poster in front of their library's checkout counter because everybody has to stand and stare at the same wall when they're checking out books. And so that's where they wanted that poster. And so if there's something like that in the city, just let me know and we'll get it out there.
Wonderful. I appreciate those great ideas, and we will discuss offline amongst ourselves about how to implement anything that we aren't already doing, and I appreciate that. Just as a reminder, because I do believe you had April on the brain, so remind us the date of the gala. And having gone before, it was an exceptionally fun evening, and all of the little amount of money that you would spend participating goes to a phenomenal cause. So I, in my personal capacity, highly recommend. But what is that date again for us? Just because I think we got the wrong date.
Yeah, it's Saturday, June 6th. And this year it's going to be 1920s themed. So you can come in your sparkliest outfits.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, I'll hand it over to other questions. Anyone have any questions for?
Oh, yeah, I have a question. Thank you very much for the presentation, by the way. Can you hear me?
Yes, I just
Yeah,
turned up
yeah.
my volume.
Okay. I was just curious how you were able to pivot financially with such an uptick in, services needed by survivors.
That's a great question. That's a very good question. So a couple ways. We definitely needed to hire up the amount of people. Since I came on, we have doubled our staff members. And that has been, I mean, we're a relatively small staff. So when I came on, there was 3 and now there's 6. And so, you know, that's not a huge doubling, but it is a doubling. And also we were able to really work with our partners to ensure that they felt like they had capacity to be in the center in person. And for some of them, we got creative. There's a couple partners that have had a challenge with capacity. And so we have worked out a system in which if a survivor is in the center, we can get a hold of that partner and pull them up on a screen so that survivors are able to talk directly with that person, even if the organization is challenged for their own capacity. And so it's just been a constant conversation, and we've made several pivots around making sure that we can meet the needs when they arrive. But that's a very good question.
Any other comments or questions? All right. I'm going to, again, on behalf of Councilor Urtoli, who is at home, and I think we're still having some technical difficulties, on his behalf as well, I will just thank you, because I know, again, he would also do that if he was here. We thank you for your time tonight, Rachel, and as always, we really appreciate our partnership with you and just the vital work that you're doing for the community. So have a lovely evening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you all so much. You guys have a lovely evening as well.
All right, now, certainly not from PBFR is going to join us, and I think it's safe to say that as an honorary PBFR member and, you know, individual, right, having gone through Community Academy, you know, we welcome you tonight, and thank you for all of your time tonight for joining us. We always love having you here.
Well, thank you, Mayor Fender and councilors. Thanks for having me here. I am Derek Weiss. I'm the fire chief for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, if you haven't met me before. And it feels a little like coming home tonight. King City is where I started my career 29 years ago at the station down the street.
Here, here.
And you, being a Community Academy graduate, you're like family. And Councilor Petrie actually is family, I'm pretty sure. We are related.
Are you really?
We
Oh,
are.
fun.
As well.
Wow.
But thanks for giving me a little bit of time to talk about the state of the district and what your fire district's been doing for the last year. It's been 3 years since I've been in front of a council, I think, in person. I've done a few video ones, but the first thing I want to do is introduce a few folks that are with me that were good enough to come over tonight. Captain Quinn used to be the captain of your station for a long, long time. And he deserted. He went out to Midway, taking it a little bit slower out there. But Captain Reed is here. Want to stand up? Captain Gary Reed, he's your captain now at the King City Station, Station 35. Would you like to introduce your crew? Because you have both engine and medic here today.
We've got both with me here on our engine today. I have our driver, Chris Hendricks, right there. We have Tyler Wilson and Pete Varudenhagen. It's a lot easier. And then over here, we have our medics, and we have 2 rigs. We have obviously fire engine, like fire transporting medics, and then Chesky Frank and Mark Carlson.
Thanks, you guys, for stopping by. They may have to run out. They actually are in service, and they're still running calls tonight. I'd also like to introduce Assistant Chief Patrick Fail, recently promoted, and then PAO Corinne. You want to wave to everybody too? They do a lot of work to set this stuff up. It takes a lot of people to support me.
Yeah.
So, I'm here to admit it. So we gave you hard copies of the presentation, just because we weren't going to fight with the electronics this evening. We'll roll through it.
Always appreciated.
Okay, good. So, as I'm traveling around the district, what I realize on this first slide is that a lot of you probably don't know, we have mission statements and we have strategic plans, just like any other business. And we try to keep things simple. On that sheet, what you actually see is those are the three portions of our actual mission statement. It's a little bit longer than that, but that's what we stand behind. And what it represents is that our strategic plan, which is gonna be a 5-year plan now. It used to be a 2-year plan, but now it's gonna be a 5-year plan, and we're finishing up the touches on the strategic plan that'll go through 2028. What we realized was 2 years wasn't really enough to get things done in your strategic plan, so we kept pivoting and lengthening them. We're just gonna admit that it's gonna take us at least 5 years to get a lot of these things done. So the expectations for all the personnel throughout the district is they will use our strategic plan to inform their budgets and inform their needs and wants. And our strategic plan is very, very simple: health, opportunities, and performance. Now, it doesn't go in that order, but I wish it did because that's hot and that's easy to remember. But they decided to go a little different direction with performance, health, and opportunities. So those are the three things that run your fire district, day to day, week to week, and year to year. The next page is recruitment academies and promotions, and related to the health of our organization. Like a lot of places, we've seen a ton of turnover, lots and lots of turnover. I can tell you that we have promoted ranks in our organization, firefighters that have been hired. We've had AO processes, lieutenant processes, battalion chief processes, captain processes, assistant chief processes, district chief processes, not the fire chief process yet. But we know that it was, what was the number, 63% of our upper management, so captains and above, is either on a work-back agreement today or they can retire in the next 5 years. We are going through people left and right, and it's just a cycle. It's not so much to do with the economy or where things are in the world today, it's just the cycle of the fire service in our district. When I got hired in 1994, it was academy after academy after academy, and then it starts to slow down. And now we're back to academy after academy after academy. We hired 24 at the beginning of this year. We have another 24 going through right now. There'll be 16 in August. That's the right number, 16? Yeah, 16 in August. And then 2 academies per year for the foreseeable future. The faces that you see over here behind me, a lot of them are actually pretty darn new. And it's exciting as heck for me to see the new group come in and take over and see what they're going to do, because they have fantastic ideas that they want to implement in their careers with the fire. So the next slide, and I bet that just has a green couple things on it, right? Imagine, if you will, an amazing advertisement that we put out on social media. I challenge staff to do a little bit more. We do pretty good with outward-facing social media on our website, but we can do more. We are having challenges attracting recruits, just like every business across the country. We are doing better than most fire departments across the country. As I travel around, I hear about that more and more. We're better than that, but we can do even better. So I challenge staff to do more TikToks and things of that nature that I don't truly understand, but my daughters do, and they say it's really cool, Dad. So I don't know if we're doing B-Reel yet, but we do TikToks and Instagrams, and this was one where we used some of our brand new firefighters that actually informed this video and what the message is moving forward, which is also great. And speaks to the new people coming in. They have big ideas. So you can probably go to tvfr.com and have a link attached there. Corinne, am I close to being right on that? Yes, I am. So if you want to go see that, it is linked on our website. The next slide or page we have is the bond update. And, oh, it's actually going to try and play, huh?
Ooh, yeah. We'll get that. Audio?
What they're saying is really awesome stuff. A lot of times in the presentations, it's tough for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
Get all the sound on it.
Well, we'll drive us all to the website to go take a look.
It's that good?
It is that good.
It's that
We will
good.
do it, so. We can do it on our phones, right?
Yeah, I just tease these things and you guys go and check them out. Bond update. So we were fortunate that a bond was passed in 2021, November of 2021. And this is just a little update on what we're doing so far with that bond. It's been about a year and a couple months. We are looking at the location of a station up there in the Aloha, Beaverton area and where that would go. Some of the money we'll use to fund station improvements. There's a lot of stations that we have, and a lot of them are slated for improvement. We're upgrading the training center. So you were at the training center.
Oh, wow.
The training center has not changed much since 1991 when I first took classes there. In fact, I don't think it's changed much at all. We added a training tower and a couple of props, but it's going to have to get a whole new look to it. As well on that list is where we're going to put other new stations, so future land, and then we'll purchase vehicles, which you've already started purchasing some vehicles, but like a lot of people have noticed, you order a truck, a fire truck or a fire engine,
and you're a year and a half to 2 years out now. So we have to plan even further ahead for when the replacement is for these vehicles. The other part of the bond that's important, of course, to King City is your station is right there on the cusp. So the relocation of the station in the Aloha Beaverton area is the primary function because we're in an existing station that we need to move out of. But right behind that is the King City station and what that redo is going to look like. I heard from staff that we have found a site that we're hopeful that we can temporarily stay at. It's not finalized, it's not pushed through. I don't even have an address, but I know that staff is trying to find that location so we can move out, get that station rebuilt, and have it something that's different than when I started there in 1994. It's just kind of been pieced together over the years. So that's really needed some seismic improvement as well, so it's still standing if vehicle. And then after that, it will be remodeling stations and improvement to that training center, like we said, and mostly the area where the classrooms are and the offices are of the training center. Go to the next slide. This talks about King City and your stats. I love this slide. I should actually let the captain speak to this because he knows every call that he's been on in your city for the past year. The one thing I will point out, though, is that 943 incidents is not accurate. That only averages about 2.6 calls per day. And if you look at the crew behind me, they run a lot more than 2.6 calls per day. This is just city proper, is what it's showing. And then I always love the heat map because the heat map tells you where you're going in this location. If we ask the crew behind me, they will tell you exactly where that bright orange dot is because we know those areas. And so what we're trying to do is somehow attack those heavy users and how can we provide a better service and maybe not respond as much as we can. Your station is just like all the other stations, 85% EMS, 15% fires-ish is kind of how it plays out. Your station here is busy equally every day of the week. And then the hours is just like all the other stations in Europe. But just to be on the right-hand side of your piece of paper there, it shows you that it's not just Station 35 that responds to calls in your area, although 85% are. 51 in Tiger does, and 12 does to a certain extent too. So it's that using all those stations together to provide the service to the communities that we serve. So next slide. I think I talked a little bit about the excitement I have for the new folks that are coming into the organization and the ideas that they have that they're pushing for. We are absolutely leveraging technology more than we ever did, and I will tell you, we were a very technology-forward organization and progressive all the years I've been here. Now there's even more ideas. Now there's even new stuff. On your left-hand side there is some of the audiovisual training that we're doing for battalion chiefs. So battalion chiefs, they manage a certain section of stations, 6 to 8 stations per battalion chief. They manage the big incidents and the fires. And so we want to make sure they're highly trained. This is where they took the rig, they put it in a garage, they put a TV in front of it, they put in prompts and sounds and gave them radios, and they can actually practice doing different incidents in a contained environment like that. In the upper right-hand corner of your page, that is a Lucas device, and this is some of the technology that we're using that's relatively new to our county. It's not necessarily new to the industry, the EMS industry, but a Lucas device provides CPR. So they attach that piece of equipment to a patient that needs CPR, turn it on, and it's providing the CPR nonstop all the way to the hospital and throughout part of the care that they get at the hospital. We already have one of our Lucas devices actually is credited with a save for an individual in the community. So we're excited, certainly excited about that. Down to the right-hand side are our new cardiac monitors that share and capture a lot of relevant medical information that can help us train into the future. We're also partnering with Apple. I didn't know it until several months ago, but this watch actually does more than tell me time and let me know I'm getting the text. And so we're leveraging it on a pilot program, Apple Shield, and it's for the health and wellness of firefighters and first responders. So we're going to see where that pilot project goes. And then we're doing other projects emerging. We have some digital electronic technology that helps us do inspections, that helps us run calls, and actually guides us through the calls that we take. And then you can do reports in the field on different devices. And I believe we're using iPads still, right, for those in the field. We're using iPads. Moving to the next slide or the next page. This is training. You'll look at the top of this. 101,000 hours of training overall in the year, and I bet you it doesn't quite capture it all. No. But it's a ton of hours. And the one thing I wanted to point out was that this is all the activity they do at the training center, at the stations, multi-company drills with partners and other agencies, and obviously it's important to sharpen the skills. If you look at your numbers, 80,000 hours of fire training, 20,000 hours of EMS, but you saw the slide before, 85% of what we do is EMS, 15%. So why is it the difference, some people might ask? And the answer is fires are low frequency and high risk, right? We do EMS calls all day long. They're constantly getting training on EMS calls. They're constantly using those skills. But fire, we don't get those skills all the time. And so we have to train a lot in fire response so that we're ready for the infrequent high-risk calls. And the crews are doing a fantastic job with the training, with the new hose packages, and the fires are, I don't have proof, but the fires are going out quicker. I don't know how it is. Would you agree? Pretty good. So one of the things we have next slide is the risk reduction education. You can also call this fire and life safety. This is some of the things we do that not a lot of people know about. But for me to throw more resources and more people at the increasing call volume is not sustainable over a long period of time. We have to find other ways to either answer these calls or prevent these calls from occurring. Community risk reduction is absolutely the top of our list for things we need to do to reduce the call volume and the demand on these individuals. We have to keep the heavy assets ready to go if there's a big fire, and then we have to use other assets that we have at our disposal to run calls. I think most of you probably know we use cars. We have single-person cars out there. We're going to expand that program in the coming years, we hope. We have medics out in the field. They're on a medic unit that can transport patients to the hospital and run medical calls. We have rescues. We have engines. We have trucks, battalion, chief rigs, and we have fire investigators. All these resources come together. It can be part of a good plan that covers all kinds of calls that we would go on in a year. So a picture up on the left, we did 3,000 commercial building inspections in 2022. We used Field Insights to influence state and national building codes. We did multifamily landlord training. We hosted a hands-only CPR for thousands of students in our communities, performed post-fire knock and talks, which is the picture on the bottom. It's a group of people where they have a big fire, and we go back to this apartment complex, and we knock and talk, and we start handing out smoke alarms and installing smoke. And it was a huge success. And then the other things we do with community risk reduction are targeting heavy call users. So back when I was in the fire station, it was a care home in the Progress area, and we went in there and we spoke with them, and we tried to help them answer questions about what's a call, what's not a call, what's a 911, what's just a doctor call, and we reduced those call volumes. They're applying the same thing in El Monica area, where the houseless would get off the train, they had no place to go, and they'd call 911. And so we keep going. And we partnered with TriMet, the City of Beaver and Washington County, and other nonprofits to find places for these people to go, just to reduce that call volume. So it was a success, but we have to keep doing it. Next slide. That is your Medic 35 up there. Well played, Corinne, putting their name on the slide.
A beauty.
Feels like it was with purpose. So Washington County Transporter, the Washington County EMS system is near and dear to my heart. I've been with the organization for 29 years, and the EMS system in Washington County has not significantly changed in 25. 25 years, the same thing. Same service provided to all of you. And what we started to notice was that the system was failing, the system was eroding. Without any change or any improvements, we started noticing medics like yours in this town will be called to transport patients, which is not our primary function and not our role in the community, but we would be asked to do it. We started seeing that in Swanton Valley years ago, and the numbers were increasing. It wasn't until more recently when we got the EMS Alliance formed, which is all the fire chiefs in the county, that it was now affecting other fire departments. They were having to put their engines out of service, medic and rescues in service to transport calls. So as of last year, Washington County went out for an RFP for a new provider in the county. There was 3 bidders. AMR was successfully, they bid it, and Washington County won the bid. There was an appeal. The appeal was denied, and now we're moving forward with the transition from the current provider to AMR in Washington County. It's supposed to be July 1, but I believe they've already moved it to August 1st because of delays. We are looking for system enhancement, system improvements, changes in service level, shared data, dispatch consistency, where they're all dispatched out of WACA, and we look forward to working with our new partners in the near future. That was that slide. And then May 24, our existing 45-cent levy per 1,000 expires in June of 2025. It funds firefighters, paramedics, some support personnel, some equipment. We believe the board is going to refer replacement levy to the May 24 ballot, where we will hope to retain firefighters and paramedics, as well as some equipment. That is what it's in May. I said May.
Great.
Is what we think it's going to be. Okay. And that is my presentation, unless you have questions.
Wow. Wonderful. You know.
Any questions you have?
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity, since you're here, to just give a glowing kind of affirmation of Station 35. They are just so phenomenal, and Captain Reed is just wonderful, and leadership under him, the whole crew is phenomenal. You know, I think everyone in this room probably has personal story about Station 35 and all of them. I've shared often that my dad suffered some pretty severe strokes, and really getting him to the hospital quickly, which Station 35 did. Time equals brain. We all know that. And so my dad is doing great, and he's alive, and you guys played a big part of that. So I personally thank all of you, but also just a phenomenal job that TVR Fedora does for our community. So I will hand it over to everyone else up here for questions or comments. And Smart, this is your warning that if you have a question or comment, to get on now, because I'm going to skip over you if you don't raise your hand. So go ahead, anyone.
I did have a question.
Yeah.
What, the Lucas device?
Yep.
How much is a device like that?
Mhm.
Any idea?
I do have an idea, but I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, I don't know.
I was just curious.
It's been a while since we purchased them.
Go ahead. Yeah, last I checked was like 10,000, but I think they're somewhere in the 20s, depending on the data you get with it.
Wow.
The type that we get with the options that we get is around 5.
We have one so far.
But we have several of them.
Oh, you have several.
We do, and we added a few more. We want to start out slow with the stations that were further away from hospital care and see how it went. And then we wanted to make sure that they would be effective. And so we let some others go first. AMR in Portland was using them. I'm not sure that Metro used one, but we want to see the efficacy of them. And then we started to add a few more. So, yeah. They're not cheap.
Other questions?
No, just a comment, thank you, and I guess we're in the fortunate part, we haven't had to use you, but we know you're there. Thank you.
I would just echo the thank you, because you guys are fantastic, and luckily my family has not had to call, but we have lots of friends who have, and you guys have done a fantastic job. And but as a personal note, we took our son, who was, I think, 3 at the time, over to Station 35, and he had a great tour. So you guys not only are doing fantastic work within the community, but also, you're also wonderful ambassadors for what you do and for the community.
Well, thank you. There's a bunch of rock stars that I get to work with. An awesome job, and they love providing the services.
Yeah.
So thank you. And you guys ought to hear it too. They were here to hear it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to helping support your bonds.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys. All right. So we will move on. So this is going to be our open forum at this time. We did have a sign-up sheet, so if you haven't signed up, come and sign up. But at this time, this is my little preamble, the council will be happy to receive your comments pertaining to items on the agenda, including questions, suggestions, complaints, items for the future. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. And I always try to take this time to remind everyone, right, you get to speak to us. We don't get to have a dialogue back with you, which is always very frustrating for us and difficult, but we will listen to you and place your statements on the record. So with that, Mike, do you want to do the roll call of the sheet and just call up whoever's?
Oh, here?
Yeah, well, just so that we have an order of who. And then, so we are going to first take public comments for those in the room. What I would ask is, if you are on Zoom and you want to make a public comment, then please indicate by raising your hand or going to the chat function. Again, this is also a reminder that any chat that happens on Zoom is not part of the public record. We do not, none of us here on the panel review any of the chat. So don't waste your breath and just indicate that you would like to be heard, and we will accommodate that after those here in the room speak. So up first is going to be Gary Mitchell. Gary, please come to the podium, and then state your name, state your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay, Gary Mitchell, and I live at 13350 Southwest King Lear Way. And wow, was that an uplifting presentation by the fire department, and I had to go after it. What I'd like to talk about tonight is the last planning commission hearing, and the purpose of what I'm bringing up is that I know you, the council, the elected officials, depend on the planning commission to fully consider all matters and forward thoroughly evaluated, reasoned recommendations to you so that you can make decisions. And that's the importance of what they do for you. Now, I filed an appeal, and I'm going to read it, but I'd like to, you could follow if you would like. I've got this, at least the first page. You can hand this out and follow along as I read it. I don't think I have a copy from Mike, but I do have a copy, a complete copy of my testimony that I can give to the recorder. Okay. When does my 3 minutes start? Well,
we'll start it now. How about that?
Okay, great. The full testimony that I'm submitted is 14 pages, but I'm only going to read the first page, so don't worry.
We appreciate that.
Okay. I filed an appeal on April 5th regarding the action taken by the Planning Commission at the 322 public hearing on the transportation plan. A week later, I asked the status, and then I received an email from the city manager stating that I cannot appeal. I don't know if all of you are aware of that. I know, Jamie, you probably are, because I saw you copy. The wording in the municipal code appears to me to be plain, clear, and unambiguous. Section 216-100, appeal to the city council. An action or ruling of the commission authorized by this chapter may be appealed to the city council within 15 days after the commission has rendered its decision by filing written notice of appeal with the city manager. The planning commission voted on a motion. It made a decision to recommend the transportation system plan for approval to you, the city council. I requested a letter that provides specific law or authority that supports the city manager's conclusion that I cannot appeal. I then received an email, not a letter, from the city attorney in which he explained various appeal processes and concluded that I could only appeal and approve an approval or a decision. He did not address the municipal code, and he did not provide specific law regarding what constitutes an action. I believe my appeal meets the requirements of Municipal Code 216-100 and that it should be processed and referred to the Planning Commission for resolution as described in the code. There is nothing in the code that gives the city manager discretion not to accept my appeal. Time is of the essence. The transportation system plan is part of the Kingston Terrace Master Plan, which is scheduled for the Planning Commission hearing next Wednesday. The Planning Commission review, deliberations, and actions on the Kingston Terrace Master Plan may be affected by issues raised in my appeal. An action by the Planning Commission on the Kingston Terrace Master Plan could be premature and incomplete until issues raised in my appeal are addressed and resolved. So I ask for a resolution of this as soon as possible. Because my limited time, I will not be able to review the important issues raised in my appeal. If the city manager has not forwarded my appeal for your review, I will be happy to send it to each one of you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary.
Love it.
Mike, I think it would be helpful to have an executive session with Peter Watts at some point, so we'll kind of discuss offline and then get back to you. That's not really a dialogue, but just so next up we have Sam Laughlin. Laughlin, yeah. And state your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Sam Laughlin. I live at 17445 Southwest 131st Avenue in King City. What I want to talk about today is I'm requesting assistance from King City regarding a street name change. And I'm not recommending a name change, that's not why I'm here, because that's between the city and the developers, so. In your packet, you should have a Washington County map, looks like that. And on that map, it kind of shows what I'm looking at. You see the private driveway easement, that's my property. To the west of that is Southwest Bradley Lane, and that's part of the new development, and that's the road in question. To the east is an existing public road called Southwest Bradley Lane as well. On the second attachment, and I'll explain why I'm bringing that here. This attachment here, it shows an actual Google map that shows my private easement as Southwest Bradley Lane. That's caused a lot of confusion. And there's also this with the pictures, and that's people and cars, delivery trucks coming down a gravel road, which is Caesar Terrace right now, but it's going to eventually be paved. They're turning and they're coming in and out of my private easement, and I think having the name Bradley Lane just confuses the matter more because it gives the impression that my private driveway is a public road. And that's why I'm looking at having the name changed, Bradley Lane, because it's creating some confusion. So I sent an email to Mike on September 29th of last year, and I had brought it to his attention that this could be an issue, this could get very confusing. And then it turns out that on December 1st, it was actually formalized, and that is, as for Washington County, it's now Bradley Lane. So there was some time in between where we could find something about it. So I just recently called Washington County, it's probably about 3 weeks ago. And I'm gonna go ahead and read this. Washington County has final say on street names. No doubt, they have the final say. The city can recommend street names and changes. The county agreed that the name is confusing. I talked to them for about 40 minutes, said it's confusing, and they would prefer a unique name. The county will most likely, I'm not gonna get into why this is, because I can talk about this for hours, but they're probably gonna change it to a court versus a lane. And then I received a follow-up email after my meeting with them, and they said that they would approve a new street name. So there's no question about that. But anyway, I had a hard time believing that the city doesn't have a say in the matter. And I talked to Scott Young, who has the final say for Washington County in the surveying department. And we had a conversation for about 40 minutes, and I learned a lot. And he was very helpful. And Mike said that they had told me that, I don't want to really speak for Mike, but he did tell me that the county never informed him of new street names. And the county says that they never got any long-term planning from the city. So there's just no communication going back and forth at the time. So all I'm asking from the city is that they take ownership and they work with the developer and they work with the county, give them a call. I think it would be, there may be a fee involved. I mean, I can't tell you how much it's going to be. It could be anywhere from $280 to, like if I was to submit a petition, which I'm not going to do, then, they say $1,700. But then, when I talked to Scott, he said, well, it'll probably be less. I've pretty much done all the footwork and it's a pretty easy change. But anyway, that's what I'm asking is that, all I'm asking is that the King City make that call, talk to the county, communicate with them, maybe we'll all learn something, what happened. I don't know where the miscommunication occurred, but if I could get their help. There's also a petition that Jim Gates is the developer for Ponderosa Pines, and he's got a filled out petition. It's all ready to go. You could review it with the city, but that's all I'm asking. And I think the city probably should pay the fee because I did notify them early. I have no problem with dealing with Mike. He's been a big help. Everybody was confused at the time. And I had to learn, I learned a lot about it. I would have done something sooner, but, everyone thought, well, the county has a decision, final say, but they're the ones that said it should be a unique name. So please help me out. Let's make it right, because it's going to be very confusing. and the road isn't even in yet. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you for coming and bringing this to our attention, and Mike, maybe we can put this on the.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda for later. Oh, okay, perfect, then,
I'll discuss it when it happens.
okay, great, so we'll talk about it a little bit later this evening. All right, wonderful. Okay, next up is Viva Gaylor. And
Thank you. Viva Gaylor. I live at 12700 Southwest Beef Bend Road. This evening, I have my King City Community Foundation hat on. 6 years ago, we were formed to provide King City with the 4th of July Walk and Roll Parade and Festival. We had a couple years break because of pandemic. We had a parade and festival last year, and this year we would like to also sponsor a parade and festival in King City on 4th of July. And as a board member of the King City Community Foundation, I would like to ask the city for their support financially of $1,000 and to do the other extended expenses that have been provided by the city for insurance and waste disposal. Thank you. And please consider my request.
thank you, Ms. Gaylor. I always take this opportunity to remind everyone, put it on the record, that I am the founder and past president of the King City Community Foundation, and the 4th of July Festival was our baby that we created many years ago, and so I would just like to put that on there. I'm just a board member, I'm no longer the president. I will raise this item during my council update, so we can kind of talk about the 4th of July, because I have other things to talk about it with that, so we'll discuss it later. Then last but not least is Gary Woods. Welcome, Gary. Good evening.
I've been traveling the world, haven't been here lately. Just got back from Africa too. One of the thing I want to bring up doesn't have anything to do with Kingston Terrace. You'll be happy to hear that. But I would like the council to consider the problem that we have, and a lot of you that drive down Fisher Road right now, because of the 131st and Fisher Road work that's being done, and they tore up the road, and then they didn't put it back so that it's smooth. And a number of our neighbors have been talking to me about what are we going to do about this, because she woke up her baby driving by there the other day, and she wasn't very happy about that. So I just think that when we hire out, I know it's not a King City, but King City can have some influence to get something done. Put back the road the way that they found it when they started the project. You all decided that was a good project to start, even though many people didn't think it was. And it's now going on, and we're living with it. But the road is torn up and not put back, and affects us on both Fisher and on 131st. So that's it. I just don't know who needs to do what, but I think it would be good to talk to whoever dug it up and ask them to put it back the way it was, because as we go forward with Kingston Terrace, we don't want the same kind of thing over there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mike, maybe this evening when you do your report, you can kind of update us on where we at. The road won't be in that condition. It will be put back because we put in some safeguards a few years ago. And so maybe you could walk us through, just remind us about those safeguards and maybe a timeline. And it would be good to get an update on that project anyway, because we know that there was some delay. So anyway, so if you stay, I'm assuming you stay, so you all say we'll address it a little bit later. So with that, is there anyone online that would like to be heard? Do we have anyone indicate that they would want to make a...
They'll have to raise their virtual...
So if you are online and you would like to make a public comment, now is the time to do so. I'll give about...
Raise a virtual hand.
Raise a virtual hand, please.
Jim Gates, asking.
All right, so Mr. Gates, we are going to promote you to panelist.
You'll need to unmute.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm right here.
Yes, we can hear you okay, thank you.
Okay, I raised my hand earlier. I just want to say that Sam's been instrumental instrumental with helping me with development. I'm the guy that is trying to get the Ponderosa Pines project through, and we have good news. We got the funding, and they're going like crazy, and we hope to start doing the building the homes in as early as 6 weeks. And Sam's discussion about what happened with the roads, I kind of think it was the civil engineers that kind of screwed up, because they put in the plans Ponderosa Pines Lane, and I went, sweet, because I picked it. Everything's great. Got approved, went all the way through the city. Everybody approved it, and then right when I was critical path to get the plat recorded, they called me back and said, you can't use Ponderosa Pines. I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, they no longer can accept two names. It has to be only one name. So everyone prior to that, I don't know I kind of think the civil engineering firm should make sure that any sign they put in the civil plans is acceptable. But that's what happened, and just we got Sam did all the homework. We got the petition going, and it's signed, and I have it. I was going to bring it, but we can show it to you later. But it's there's only 4 main neighbors around this one road that is going to be my development road, and so I got a petition that with all the new owners of the area, and there's 3. The other ones have 3, and I got 12 votes because my lot platted. I platted, so I got the vote. But basically, just want to let you know that Sam really helped streamline this in my case, and it looks like we're going to get the name Luxury Lane approved or court. So
all right. Wonderful.
Very happy.
Thank you for.
Yeah, and as a developer, King City, everyone talked to us the best. They can't believe how fast you guys are. The service is great. They care. I just want to put my hats off to you guys, because it's because I was on city council like 15 years ago, and it's really improved. I love this whole video thing. I was the first person to present a PowerPoint presentation over there at KCCA, and the mayor said, "This is our first PowerPoint presentation."
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us, and for your accolades for both Mr. Laughlin and for city staff. We appreciate that. So thank you for that update. Is there anyone else who is joined by Zoom who would like to put public comment forth at this time? If so, please indicate by raising your hand on the chat function or on the bottom bar. Not in chat, but either comment in chat or raise your hand. All right, hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move on. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we will go ahead to new business. So first is going to be discussion of our fiscal year 2022 to 2023 supplemental budget. And at this time, city staff are going to request from council action.
We are requesting council action to approve the supplemental budget. Resolution 2020.
Michael, I'm sorry.
I'm just having trouble accessing the interactive agenda. Does anybody else have trouble accessing that?
I'm okay on my end.
I'm on it, yeah.
We're just having a little bit of technical difficulties. That's all right. We're having a little technical difficulties here in the room, so just bear with us for one moment. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike. Go ahead.
So this is kind of our end of the year, last minute supplemental budget. Make sure all of our accounts line up, addressing any sort of overtures that we've had throughout the year, moving funds where we need to according to our accountant. We did have some, you see some pretty substantial movements of money because our accountant has come up with different funds, and he would prefer us to be funding staff members through those accounts versus some of the others. So you'll see some money movement for staff charges from one account to another. So some will show up as negative, others will or show up as positive. Ultimately, the adjustments, approximately $92,000 total is what we're talking about. There was some other substantial adjustments. We didn't necessarily adjust too much on the passport revenue, but we did adjust the passport expenditures. So I think when we turn over the audit and everything at the end of the year, I think you'll see a larger beginning fund balance because we're not really raising that much up, but you are seeing a much larger expense for postage and things of that nature that we use as a function of the passport. In fact, it's quite substantial. It's about 100,000 more. So, of course, we'll see revenue from postage and things on the backside, but we're not counting that yet. But we will see that when the fund balances are reaccounted. So, as we go through this, we moved some in police operations. We had some charges for some new computers that we had to account for. We had some training things that we had. We also had some, this would be also a good moment to discuss the potential for a trip to DC in June. If the council wants to do something like that, what we have is we moved a little money into a special department expense for that. It's a lobbying trip through, and the mayor, it's through Washington County Coordinating Committee, I believe.
Correct.
And to try to lobby for additional roadway funds and things of that nature. Mayor, I'll let you go ahead and take that if you want to.
Yeah, so, right. As most of you know, I'm on I participated in the WCCC, the Washington County Coordinating Committee that deals with land use and transportation for Washington County. A delegation of Washington County is going June 4th through 8th to Washington, D.C. to meet with not only the entire kind of Oregon federal delegation and their staff, but also with various agency staff and leaders and other lobbyists to discuss bringing in transportation supportive dollars to Washington County. We'll call it the lobbying delegation. That's not really, it sounds a little weird, but basically the delegation who will go to Washington, D.C. is going to consist of as many mayors as they can get from Washington County, along with representatives from JPAC, from obviously Washington County staff, and city managers. And I think it's fair to say, although I would absolutely love to go to every single conference I'm invited to and every single, trip to DC that I get invited to, I always turn them down because I don't, fiscal responsibility to the city, especially a city of this size, is very important to me. And it doesn't make sense very often that the expense of going really would benefit the city in the long term. Here, however, I do think that because of our expansion, because of the transportation needs of the entire region, but also because of the needs of King City, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I think this would be a really important trip. If there was going to be one that we do, this would be the trip to do it. And so right now, other mayors, tomorrow I have lunch with the other 5 mayors, or the other 4 mayors of the region, and we'll discuss who out of those, but I suspect that they, except for Mayor Sherrod from Durham, I suspect that Mayor Liu, Mayor Bubenek, and Mayor Rosner will all go. And there's one of the strategies that I think us as mayors in our efforts for lobbying dollars is on our collective participation, right? Is the fact that we really do try to come together as a group. So there's a lot of discussion right now about the federal government wanting to partner with partners right? Not just single cities, but, you know, there's a great showing between, you know, having everyone come, a collective kind of request. And so anyway, we just got those details, and yeah, it would be a 4-day trip, and the agenda is quite robust, and there we go.
So we would essentially leave on Sunday,
Mhm.
and then we would return on Wednesday night.
Correct.
And it would be that Sunday we would arrive, and then burning shoe leather, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, lobbying for funding for Beef Bend, lobbying for funding for Roy Rogers and 99W primarily, as well as the West Side Trail segment. So those would be our 4 primary goals for King City.
Right.
Right now, we have federal grant dollars being allocated through Metro for the West Side Trail segment, and it would be nice to get additional dollars augmented to that project. So that's in here. There's also other things. We needed to do a new air conditioner in our Intel or our IT room. So that was $12,000. That's in here. There's other fees and things that we have incurred along the way. We have a new administrative assistant over here. And we also are probably looking to hire a planner here in the very near future. Those will be coming forth. That planner position will be coming forth in the new budget, but we have all the advertising and everything getting ready for that as well. It's just making sure that all of our accounts align and all of our last minute admin stuff before the end of fiscal year. Yeah, so all of our books align. Any other questions, concerns, any line items that are worrisome for you?
So I was going to talk about the trip to, I was going to kind of bring that up at my, so I guess this is more of a point of order, right? So I think we should probably separate out discussion about whether, what your guys' thoughts are about Mike and I going on this trip to Washington, D.C., and then separate out that from the budget. So I think it makes sense to have that discussion first, and then go forward with whatever action is needed with the supplemental budget. If someone else has a different suggestion, I'm open to it, but let's do it. So I guess first, questions about the trip to DC, thoughts? What are your guys' thoughts on?
I mean, I think it's a good idea to have a voice for the region, especially with what the impacts are going to be with a lot of building going out, you know, 10, 20 years, 30 years. I think the region is going to need a lot more.
As well, I think that's it. I mean, we're at a point where we probably do need that representation. It makes sense to do it at this point.
This is something we weren't planning. It just literally came
It,
up.
it literally popped up in, Mayor Senator, you're going to join us, right? Like, whoa, you know, typically. And like I said, I'll be very candid. Last week I took, the U.S. Conference of Mayors came to Hillsborough, and I attended a big meeting with the U.S. Conference of Mayors and other mayors around kind of the west coast of the state. And, you know, it's a great organization, a phenomenal organization. I would love nothing more than for us to join the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I would go every year to their conferences. It's phenomenal. However, I just don't think we can justify right now that expense. I think we, you know, there is some benefit for grant funding directly to that organization. But again, you know, we really should focus locally, in my opinion, before we start looking nationally. However, when we have an opportunity to go and potentially get federal dollars that will then directly impact our citizens and our residents, I think that is important. And so for that, I would say that this, you know, and I think part of what we have to also remember, which Councilor Rosenthal did not talk about tonight, but Sherwood is about to announce their expansion for their industrial area, right? And they're on kind of the precipice of that. They tried to make a go of it a couple years ago. It didn't work. They withdrew, but now they're going forward. And coordinating kind of that expansion along with Kingston Terrace and along with River Terrace 2.0 is is crucial and vital. And there's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of federal dollars that can be fed through Sherwood, which will then, can benefit King City and Tigard, in other ways. And so taking advantage of those items as well, I think is really important. So, does anyone have strong opinions for us not to go? I guess is the, okay. All right. So, with that, Mike, you need, a motion from us to approve the supplemental budget?
Yeah, I mean, some of the big ones that changed were, new development. We had a bunch of new development coming in, so there's services contracted that also has a revenue side. Again, we, budget revenue very conservatively, so we don't necessarily need to change our revenue side, but we do need to change our expense. So, we have more development than was anticipated, so there's more, contracted costs there, more costs in finance. There's more costs on some of our expenses with the police department, with also the admin. So, like I was mentioning, the AC unit back here, the computers, those were all elements that we had to upgrade, and that'll be that's captured in this budget.
Was that trip already in the revised budget?
It's in here.
Okay.
There's additional training funds in this revised budget to cover, because Sam Hollis, one of our other staff members, is taking had to go with some court, training, and so she has to go to Utah for 2 days, because that's the only place that they can do it, and they won't do it virtual. So, she's on her way to Utah, I think, next week. So that's also captured in here. That was an unexpected necessity, and it's court records training through our Excel software that they only do in person. So it's a 2-day, all-day thing that she had to do on, and very short notice on that.
Other questions about the supplemental budget? We'll give everyone
So
a minute to look at it. Yep.
under the planning finance, the line for services contracted staff charge to other programs, that's just some big numbers that jump out there.
Moving around, yeah, so you saw like, it says minus 194,000
Right.
out of this one. That was something that came from our finance, accountant, and what he wanted is, he wanted to move that into its own department. So we moved it out of that one and put it into a different department. So while it adds in, 2 other departments, it takes away from the finance and, planning department, and added into my department, which is the city manager department. Because, it's an admin assistant position, and then there's, some other folks, like courts got moved into courts, and so it just moved some of those finite pieces around. Dave, like our public works, got moved into city manager, and it moved some money around, moved some positions in the budget flow around, and that's why you see those big numbers come out here, but then you see them added in different areas. So it all kind of washes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know. It looks big, but then you go up and then you see a big subtraction. Right? So you see a big add
Right.
here, and then you see a big subtraction here, and it all washes.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
How is it possible that we are only spending half as much as we thought we would on city attorney fees?
He probably hasn't billed us
Hey,
yet.
there's a discount.
Poor Peter's behind on it.
Yeah.
Actually, because we were anticipating a lot more earlier in the fiscal year, and it's all coming later in the fiscal year. So we were actually anticipating a number of these public hearings to go and happen through October, November, December, and we were supposed to be done. But, here we are, 6 months later, and it's happening now. So, we believe it's going to get, a number of this is going to get pushed into the next fiscal year, when we see these charges be levied on.
Other questions? Comments? Smart, if you have a question online, let us know. Otherwise, we'll just kind of continue on with our discussion. But any other questions or concerns or statements? All right, hearing none and assuming Smart is not raising his hand, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve, resolution R 2023-05, a resolution allowing a supplemental budget increase and decrease pursuant to ORS 294-338. Providing for the receipt, appropriation, and expenditure of unexpected funds.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. And Smart, if you can raise your hand online. Unanimous here in the room. All right, motion carries. All right. So we will keep you guys updated on the planning of our trip, but I appreciate the support. I think it's, like I said, I don't know, I don't think we've ever gone to DC. I think you and Mayor Gibson went to a conference, I think, once together, but not,
March City Conference,
yeah.
last travel that we did. That was in 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I bet this is the first time King City will go to DC, so it's a little historic for us, so, yeah, great.
Yeah, 2018, I want to say, last time we did any travel.
Right. Wonderful, okay, so I will report back about all of that. All right, so now, we have, Mr. Laughlin's, renaming, street issue to discuss. I also, as I was sitting here, I had kind of some thoughts in my mind. So I think I hate to push this to another agenda. So I think it warrants kind of some discussion. But I just kind of have an epiphany, and I'd like to call over to Washington County and talk to them. And so I don't know if we're going to get a final resolution tonight, but anyway, so let's have a little bit of discussion, and then I think in my capacity of mayor, I'd like to call, because this is a lot of bureaucracy for a simple problem that seems like it could have a very simple solution, and seems wasteful of all our time. So I appreciate the history of why kind of we're here and the frustration that, I'm sure that you have about that. But I'm a little hopeful that there's just a solution out there that might be more simple. So, Mike, why don't you give us kind of an update? And
So our attorney advised us not to get involved.
Yeah.
But I will say this, I think that we can definitely be a spokesman on behalf of Mr. Laughlin and support Mr. Gates in his efforts. Right now, there's no houses there, right? So we can promote the change of this road relatively simply at this point in time without hopefully a big ticket at the end of it, because there's no one to notify really except for 2 people, and get this going. So I support Mr. Laughlin's efforts to change the name and do that. I will say that the city really hasn't been involved in the street naming process. It's really, the onus is on the developer who proposes the name. In this situation, Mr. Laughlin actually knows a great deal more on how this all came to be, but I will give you my third-hand knowledge, which is from Mr. Laughlin himself, and Mr. Gates. And what my understanding is that they had the original name, Ponderosa Pines Road or Ponderosa Pines Lane or something, and that was rejected. So it came back to Mr. Gates' engineers or consultants, and they proposed the Bradley Lane, and Washington County accepted that, and that's what was on there. We at King City we're not looped in when they come up with their decision-making process. Mr. Laughlin did send me an email and said, hey, this is going to cause some confusion. And, you know, at that point in time, I sent it over to our engineer, at Contour and our city planner, and their reply was like, we don't get involved in it, it's really done through Washington County, they're the road naming authority. Washington County does have a mailing list that they send it out to, that's usually your first responders, emergency services, to the post office, and, we're not on that list. So, like, if we had gotten that, it would have been probably a good time, like, we could have said, hey, we think Mr. Laughlin, a neighbor, has raised concerns that, you know, you might want to consider a different name. Unfortunately, we don't have that process, but maybe that's something that we look to in the future, in filling something of this nature, so at least we're notified when names come down the pipe, and maybe we have some input on them. I don't think, it's too much trouble for us to reach out to Washington County and inquire and try to promote this name change. And then I can report back to the council on what that might actually cost us at the end of the day, or what it might cost the developer, and see if there's a in-kind donation or something to that effect that the city is willing to put forth. But I can tell you, our attorney has told me over the phone, it's not a city issue, it's the developer who needs to pay the cost for the road, because I think there's a piece in our code that says the developer shall pay for development costs. That being said, there's, you know, situation that Mr. Laughlin is finding himself having to deal with, and it's unfair to him, and I believe that the city should also stand up for Mr. Laughlin as well. So maybe there's some stuff that we can do, dedicate some in-kind resources and time to help try to get things changed, and then there probably needs some additional effort put forth by the developer themselves.
But I think there's kind of two, I mean, there's two issues, right? One is, you know, our wheelhouse, Washington County's wheelhouse, those stay separate, and they need to stay separate, and we should, you know, we don't want to step on their toes, and likewise, we ask that they don't step on ours when the situation or circumstance is different. I also think, I would be concerned about setting precedents about interjecting into this process with all of the development that is coming. But that leaves Mr. Laughlin with no recourse, with or little recourse, without it. And I think there might be, I have some ideas. What I'd like to do is, I'd like to speak with you and Peter kind of later, see what I can do with some of these ideas I have, if they're good and we get the okay. I think it seems like a very easy solution can be found if we can get some cooperation with Washington County, and, for example, perhaps, in my capacity, we can respectfully request that they waive the fee and that we just, so I think some of these conversations might happen. So I think, I'm happy, let's talk about it if someone has any thoughts, but I think what I would propose is, why don't you leave it with Mike and I, let's see what I can kind of do, and then we'll put this on the agenda for the next one. And certainly if we find a solution ahead of the next meeting, you will know about it, we'll get in touch. But there has to be, there has to be a simpler solution, in my opinion. I just think it might take a little bit more communication. So, if everyone's okay with that, then we'll maybe punt it to the next agenda.
We have a motion to table.
Yeah, does someone have a motion to table?
Okay, I'll move that we table, item 6B, the consideration of renaming a street.
So second, wonderful, okay, we got a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. And smart, if you Oh, Smart, threw his hand up. Smart, we appreciate you following along so intently and helping us. Motion carries. So, leave it with us a little bit longer. And I'm sorry my epiphany came while I was sitting here after you already spoke to us. I wish my brain would work differently sometimes, but there we are. All right. No problem. Okay, moving on. The next agenda item is the proclamation for National Community Development Week, April 10th through April 14th, 2023. And we are.
You want me to read it?
Please.
All right. 6B is a proclamation from the National Community Development Week declaring the week of April 10th through April 14th, 2003, National Community Development Week, just after the fact. Here is the proclamation. Whereas the week of April 10th through April 14th, 2023 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Home Investment Partnerships Home Program. And whereas the Community Development Block Grant Program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities for low and moderate income people. And whereas the Home Investment Partnership Home Program provides funding to local communities to create decent, safe, affordable housing opportunities for low-income persons. Nationally, over 1 million units of affordable housing have been completed using home funds. And whereas over the program's history, our community has received a total of $1,036,426 in community development block grant funds. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of King City designates the week of April 10th through April 14th, 2023 as National Community Development Week in support of these two valuable programs that have made tremendous contributions to the viability of the housing stock infrastructure, public services, and economic vitality of our community. Be it further resolved that this community urges Congress and the administration to recognize the outstanding work being done locally and nationally by the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Home Investment Partnerships Program by supporting increased funding for both programs in fiscal year 2023. I agree, Mayor Pender.
Thank you. You did a great job. Wonderful. All right. At some point, it would be helpful to, maybe in our workshop or a goal setting session or something to get kind of some of the weeks that we observe throughout the year on some type of calendar, and because since this, it's unfortunate the timing didn't work out, that we couldn't.
I actually brought it to the attention 2 months ago.
Okay. Well, let's follow up with that in a work session on how we get it earlier than a week later, but we certainly support our fair housing partners and all the work that they do. So next is to consider, we kind of took C and D together, right? So I can move on to discuss and consider the ARPA grant award recommendations.
Oh, you want to do the D? D is actually a proclamation.
Oh, is it on? I apologize. Somehow okay, let's go back. Apologies for, my brain is just scattered tonight, I guess. Proclamation for Fair Housing Month, April 2023. And Mike, again, do you want to read this one on my behalf? Thank you.
Proclamation, the Fair Housing Month, April 2023. Whereas the year 2023 marks the 55th anniversary of the passage of the Federal Fair Housing Act, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, and whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all community members without regard to race, color, religion, gender, familial status, disability, or national origin. And whereas Oregon Fair Housing Law guarantees that housing throughout the state of Oregon should be made available to all community members without regard to marital status, sources of income, sexual orientation, including gender identity, and survivors of domestic violence. And whereas equality of opportunity for all is a fundamental policy of this nation, state, and county, and whereas barriers which diminish the rights and limit the options of any community member will ultimately diminish the rights of all community members, and whereas only with the cooperation, commitment, and support from all the residents of Washington County can barriers to the enjoyment of this and other aspects of equality of opportunity for all be removed. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of King City hereby proclaims April 2023 to be Fair Housing Month and encourages all community members to support and endorse fair housing, reaffirm their commitment to fair housing for all, and wholeheartedly recognize these rights and responsibilities throughout the year.
Here. All right, thank you. Now, moving on to discuss and consider the ARPA grant award recommendations.
So we have an applicant. So we have an ARPA grant applicant, and in your packet, you'll see that there's a number of staff members that served throughout the pandemic working for our space age folks. In your packet are the list of recommended award amounts. The total award amount for this organization is $31,429.30. The maximum grant amount for any one recipient was $3,000. We based that off of the hourly rate for the grant, which was $10 an hour with a max of $3,000. So this was one of the functions that was established through the resolution for our ARPA fund, and we've looked through the documentation provided by the applicant, which gives all the staff hours and time sheets, payroll census, all that is in the folder, and so the staff is recommending that we approve the grant amount in this number, and then it will require follow-up from the agency to then ensure that these staff members are allocated these funds from the payroll.
Questions, comments, for Mike?
Is this money that we've already received, or is this money?
It is.
It was meant for this.
It was specifically meant for this
Right.
purpose.
We got the funds a long time ago.
We did indeed. This is our first applicant,
It's
which,
come this long to apply for.
and
And that was basic.
Yes.
Good for them.
good.
And how much money do we have sitting there available to?
I think another, we would still have another 140,000 in that fund to grant out. But, I think we're moving some, this year or this budget year, because we haven't seen a lot of interest in it. Maybe it's because of the conditions associated with it, because it's federal funds, but, we are trying to move some of that because we only have a few years to use it, and since we didn't get a lot of participation, we're trying to reallocate it to acceptable programs, where we can actually see those dollars put to use.
Do our local businesses know that there's an expiration date on the plane?
Well, we sent a mailer out to all the businesses that are on our business registry. But they had to have they had to work in there's some stipulations there, they had to work in a public service position throughout that pandemic where they were being potentially exposed to COVID positions. So like if you were in the healthcare industry, that's where we thought we'd get the most interest, but we haven't.
You need a motion on this one? I move that we, approve the grant award for the ARPA funds as, discussed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, thank you, Smart. Motion passes. And just as a comment, I'm very excited that we are doing this. I think, I'm very excited we finally have an applicant that we can give some money to, and it's wonderful. As most of you might know, the fate of ARPA is on the line, right? And there's a big push right now in Washington, D.C. to eliminate ARPA altogether. There's also a big push to revitalize ARPA and get a second kind of wave of funding. So there's some huge kind of discussions going on. I will say at the meeting for the U.S. Conference of Mayors that I was at, all of the staff of our senators and representatives in D.C. really want stories about, good stories that cities have to share about how they use their ARPA funding so that they can then use those stories to really justify and push for kind of a next round of ARPA and not allow it to go away. Anyway, so that request came through. So, but I think this is great. So great job staff, and we look forward to noting it in some fashion. I don't know what we'll do, but anyway. All right, moving on now. We will go ahead and we'll go through our reports. Now, we did not do our reports last time, so we have some. I have some, but I will try to be very quick. I won't give stories. So, Chief, your report.
Yeah,
please, sir.
Limited information, I've been in training and been gone, so, Lexipol update, I think we just cleared 54% today, 75% is when we start to roll out policies to the team, so that's gonna be coming up fairly quickly, I think, probably within the next couple of months. And like I said, everybody's been in training, we've had, training's been fairly diverse, and I, with, leadership stuff, Officer Aragoni, who's on the CART team, which is crash reconstruction, just the 2-week school. And then we've also got Officer Huffman that is doing the PIO school.
Aragoni and Kazanowski.
We did that last one,
Yeah.
last time. All right. And so we've got, there's been quite a bit of movement going around and education that's being part of the department. I will have an ask eventually, can I do it before the new fiscal year?
I mean, we still have 32,000 if we spend more than, yeah.
Well, we're.
Yeah, it's gonna be more, but like part-time now, part-time later, right?
Well.
Come later and then add a request for golf cart.
So, yeah, I mean.
I'm not kidding.
Maybe that's, something we could do, I don't know, but it's like, because the new car is just in general, I want to say I spent, like on the Fords, the last purchase was 2018, they were 42 to 44,000. And so the Durango, which is the vehicle that's readily available and upfitted through the same place, is 55,000 now. So it's, the price is just drastically increased. So, talk like I have been, when I'm opening emails going wow and stuff, and then also we're looking at a little brand change to colors, and so we're all I got. I'll have more next.
So, solid waste was a topic earlier today. Councilor Rosenthal was here. We did meet with a couple folks from Metro Solid Waste, Washington County Solid Waste, I should say, Tom Engelson and Megan changing positions, but we talked about doing a bulky waste day for King City through one of their grant programs, and then also an electronics recycling project. It turns out that Pride actually can do probably a bulky waste day down there, and we can maybe give everyone coupons, or we can work it out that way. The electronic recycling, there's a place out of Portland called, I think it's like Free Geeks or something. And they will come to your location, set up shop and do electronics. So, we're gonna try to coordinate with them and maybe get some additional, Washington County, resources to help us out with that. So that was one aspect. Let's see, master plan update is coming before the planning commission on April 26th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is the time slated for that, and if necessary, we'll go to the 27th. Right now, I have at least one planning commissioner that will be traveling, but trying to call in from Zoom, if not two. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting one, unfortunately. TSP reminder on May 17th, I think, the TSP is slated to come back, not back, but it will come before the city council for the first reading and public hearing, which, you know, I'll talk briefly about Mr. Mitchell, who was here earlier, and his appeal request. So he requested an appeal to the Planning Commission's recommendation to the City Council. So our attorneys have said that there's no decision to appeal, and that he would essentially be appealing a Planning Commission decision to the City Council. And since the matter comes before the City Council anyways, he will get his day in court to object to the Planning Commission recommendation regardless. So that's how that all worked out, and the final determination from our attorney and counsel was that you can't appeal a recommendation because no decision has been rendered. So there's no decision to be appealed at this point. So that being said, that's where that lies today. The DC trip we talked about, it looks like it's going to be in that first week in June. We currently had a special session, budget session, and a hearing scheduled for special session potentially scheduled for June 7th. That will need to move 1 week back. So you'll need to mark your calendars for June 14th for that budget hearing and the second reading and adoption of the transportation system. All right. The passport window has been crazy. Bottom line, there's no other way to explain it. Like, it's been about 100 passports on any given day. And
I have it on good authority that part of the reason that it's going gangbusters is because the very large group of Tiger Tualatin Moms Facebook group now has been sharing that King City is the only place that you can get it in person, and so it's
Without appointment.
without an appointment. So that it's spread recently on social media widely. So
on any given day, we are processing about 80 to 100 applications for passport. And some days, closer to 130 or 140. It's turned into an all hands on deck situation where it's even requiring me or a police officer to come out and do crowd control on some of the busier days.
yeah.
And so, you know,
Economically, is it I mean, we just don't make it seems like a lot of stress, strife, moving parts, and I just don't know how profitable it is, you know. I mean, I get it, we're making money,
Right.
but
we've gotten pretty good at identifying where the cutoff is, like what we can reasonably handle within a day if all three people are working up there. But it still goes over, and it's very burdensome on the staff that are there.
Yeah.
And instead of it being 2 people up there, it turns into 3 people. And that's not fair to the other folks that are trying to get their work done. So, you know, might have to throttle that back in the future a little bit and just put the warning out there that we're going to probably look to throttle that back just not equipped to handle the levels where it's standing room only in the council chambers, out here in the lobby and outside. And just think that's what it's been lately. I think we just got out of spring break, and Grant, we understand, we just got out of spring break. We expect it to be crazy for spring break, but then we had spring break followed by another week where we had at least three of the 4 days that we were open, no school or in-service days. And so those 3 days were standing room only as well. So we almost had 2 full weeks back to back where it's been standing room only.
Right.
So anyways, that's my passport thing. Update on the West Side Trail segment. We are working through the scope of work with Contour, who's our engineers, took over. They basically merged with Murray Smith and Associates, and we're working with Metro Trails, Parks and Trails, to come up with the finalized scope of work for the ARPA fund, and then get an IGA to you in that first meeting in June, probably June 14th, that special session. Well, we will also want to get that planner position announcement. It would be for an associate planner or planner 2. We're looking for someone that has some experience and probably at least 5 years in planning experience underneath their belt. So it's a higher end position. It'll cost more money, but hopefully we get some experience in there since Keith is trying to reduce his workload.
What about working with that organization and also the U of O's program
No, we don't qualify.
We don't qualify there?
Because it's, you're thinking of rare.
Yeah,
The
exactly,
rare
yeah,
program? Yeah.
No, bummer.
Yeah, we don't qualify because we're in the metro region.
Oh, right, okay, yep, bummer. They have just for those who are interested, the U of O and has partnered with some other agencies, and there's kind of funding and placement of planners in communities that otherwise wouldn't be able to kind of afford additional planners. And it's a great program, but we don't apply, so I won't waste time reading about it since we're not gonna get it. Anyway, cool. Let's give us an update on the state of the city.
So, my understanding is we are delaying the state of the city.
Well, that's my request, but.
So, based on everything that we have going on, the master plan, the transportation system plan, the code amendments, the FCC methodology, everything else is culminating. And so we're talking about trying to move the state of the city a little bit later in the season. So that way we can actually report on what we've done instead of have it be
Back in the middle.
potential public hearing meeting where everybody's in arms about any particular matter. So the idea is to push it back, and we haven't really set a month yet, but I was thinking September, October, or we could even go further and just do it in winter or something to that effect. But I leave that in the mayor's.
So I brought this to Mike, you know, I was thinking about, you know, I wanted to get kind of a discussion going with us. I really want each of us to take a part in the state of the city. You know, last year was just kind of, it was a functional state of the city, but, you know, I want to take this opportunity to celebrate kind of the great things about living in King City, the great work that we've done. We've all had several very grueling and difficult years. I want to have a positive kind of celebration type state of the city. I think there's some opportunities to have some food and like some event, right? Like to actually make it a celebration like some of the other cities do. And when I started thinking about this and wanting to put together my thoughts to bring it to council, the timing in the middle of the hearing just didn't seem appropriate. So I think, one, for the reasons that Mike said, that, you know, we're halfway through doing stuff and it would be better to be able to report on all the things that we've done, but also to have a positive spin and, you know, a positive celebration. And the timing isn't great for that. So unless anyone has very strong opinions that you want to have the State of the City really almost the same day as the master planning hearing, public hearing, then I suggest we push it to kind of the fall, do kind of a retrospective kind of look back, and then, you know, I'd like us all to, you know, maybe we do a planning committee, or we'll do something where we can all kind of take a you know, we go to dinner, have some happy hour or something, I don't know.
I think we could do, we've done the big pop-up tent
Mm-hmm.
before down at the park. Like, I was thinking we might be able to do an event at the park for the State of the City in like September.
Yeah,
Possibly. And, you know, we could have some entertainment, some food trucks, things of that nature.
Yep.
And try to do it right.
I think it'd be awesome. Yeah.
Weather should still be good.
Weather should be good, and then we can invite, I will also, just since we're talking about State of the Cities, I just forwarded you guys the invitation to Tualatin State of the City. We do get invited, so every time I get invited to one, I will forward it on. And so, they're always fun to go and see.
Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we discuss doing this and combining it maybe with a Pride kind of celebration?
We kind of had talked about that at the early, kind
Pride
of,
month, September?
we were, well, so we could do any Pride month we want. And so I think that might, you know, I think that's a good idea to kind of do that. So, why don't, I will get an email kind of started for kind of ideas, and maybe we can kind of workshop a September event, but doing it with Pride. I think that would be wonderful, and doing something down at the park.
Yeah, I
would be
love
great,
it.
you know, yeah. So, all right.
I had some.
All right, so we're good there? Yep, no, okay, oh, awesome, okay.
Sorry to jump in, but you had noted earlier the status of 131st and Fisher, that.
Oh, yeah, okay, what, right.
Okay, yeah.
Good job, Micah.
Thank you. So, there was a question earlier posed, about the development at 131st and Fisher. So, right now, we're aware of the two, subgrade, construction. They put water line across and then another power line across another one. They have a condition where they have to go out and repair that at the end of the day. They just haven't reached the end of the day yet where all the construction's finalized and done. But it is a condition of approval and coming before the end of this development.
And remind us, sorry, Mark, one of the things that we put into place a few years ago due to the condition of a road following a development was that the quality of the road, a developer can't come in and just fill the holes that they make. They have to restore the quality of the road back to pre-construction condition, and we changed that in our code, right? And so in this one, it doesn't make sense for a building project to do it and then, repair the road halfway through the project. They do it at the end when no more heavy machinery and so forth and access to the underlayment and all that is needed. So, they will, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they are required to restore, that section of Fisher Road. And they will do that at it's like the last thing that they're going to do on the project. As far as, I know that the project was delayed for a little while they worked out, some of the stuff with the utilities. Has that all been, I haven't are we back on track? Are they back working, or are we still, on
There's
hold?
an excavator delivered there a couple days ago.
Okay, oh, cool, okay.
Last time I heard they were planning on starting in the spring, so.
Got it, okay.
Weather's been wonderful lately.
Oh.
I mean, but, so when they took that center island out on Fisher Road, they have very few cones around it. It's not marked off well. The way I understood it, someone must have ran over it, which would make sense. They're probably not going to tear that area up anymore. Could we have them?
No, they have to tear it up and repave it. So they have to repave it.
Oh, so it's going to get torn up more?
Yeah, and they have to repave it, and then, I believe most of the infrastructure's in the ground. They still have to then repave, I think they have a second lift maybe put in, not 100% sure, I'd have to check with Paul John. on their status, but I do know that they did get delayed because of the, power vault.
Yeah.
And, transformers, so the transformers and the power vault, and so those got delayed, so those took a little longer, and they were planning on, starting back in the spring, and that was our last update. And
I mean, maybe if they could put more cones up and better tape caution.
Yeah.
Because when I drive, I don't go fishing that often, but when I do it.
Yeah, that one on Fisher was really
Tricky.
bad. We asked them, I think last month, like when they get out there and start working, if they wouldn't mind adding a little extra, patch in there just to ease that, or put a metal plate across it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause there's an exposed,
Yeah.
the exposed metal pipe that comes up, and it's pretty solid lip there. So when you're trying
Well,
to
yeah,
hit,
maybe if you could-
you also hit then the difference in levels for the asphalt as well, so.
Maybe, Mike, will you go take a look at it?
Yeah.
Go, maybe.
But
I mean, it could be why the
it is
excavator is there.
standard with any
Well,
construction project.
Sure,
This is how we do it.
right, but why don't you
might wanna
go,
mark it a little better.
maybe you go take a look at what's there, and, then,
All right, yeah, I just drove by yesterday, but I didn't pay that much
Yeah.
attention to it, but I will go by and pay particular attention to it.
Yeah. Can you give us a quick update on Kinder Morgan and that, especially because that will go into some discussion about Fourth of July, but what's the timing on that project? Do we have it?
Summer, I think,
Okay, we don't have any more time frame, or, okay. All right, we'll talk about that later
I
then.
know this one's kicking off, the Habitat for Humanity one is off, we just got building permits, I think, in,
Okay, now remember, I absolutely want a break ground shovel, celebrate, like, you know, I want to go there and celebrate that. So we need to make sure that,
I think the group down here has submitted some building permits too for the 131st, Fisher development. So I think those building permits are in.
okay,
A lot of the things, were for the infrastructure so far. So they have to have their base infrastructure in before they're allowed to apply for.
Right.
building
Right.
permits. And so a lot of that is starting to come in.
okay. But Habitat for Humanity, I would love for all of us to go and celebrate. I think that's a huge, wonderful project for King City, and a great photo op so that we can get a little story in the paper and so forth. So, tomorrow I will be cutting the ribbon at Mattress World, so.
That's not King's.
Technically, it is not King City, but, I was invited to TJ's to do their ribbon cutting, and I've been invited to this one because everyone considers it King City. We know it's tired, but, you know, and I appreciate them inviting us, so.
We'll take their tax money.
All right, I'm assuming you're done, since you had said you were done, and then I asked you to keep talking, but, all right, perfect. All right, Councilor Petrie.
Okay, so let's go just a quick through some impact reports, which is Metro Policy Advisory Committee. So in February,
Yeah.
in February, they gave an overview of, for the new counselors, or for the new committee members, the responsibilities of Metro and what Impact's role is. And then we were reminded of the fact that Metro is the only regional government in the country where the counselors are elected, which I thought was very interesting. As Councilor Rosenthal is going through it, the three main areas of Metro's responsibility is management, which is like the zoo, events, venues, et cetera. Equitable development, which is the urban growth factor. Regional transportation planning, corridor pricing, planning improvements. Those are the things, those three things are Metro's responsibility. The second presentation was about their 2024 growth management work plan, and that's because every 6 years they have to review the urban growth plan. And as mentioned before, they're looking for readiness in the cities now, and they're also adding in other criteria such as employment trends and housing needs as they're looking at these requests for expansion. In March, we got into a discussion on the supportive housing services and the bond, as Councilor mentioned to us. And in my notes, Washington County is leading the way in achieving their goals compared to the other two counties. We are way ahead. Other good news, as he mentioned, is it looks like there is going to be money and progress going on. There's going to be maybe 800 more homes than originally planned will be built with this bond, which is great. MTAC had their first discussion about the UTD expansion in 2024, which is part of the work plan. This will be something to be talking about for the next year and a half. This focus, again, is on development readiness. Those applying better be ready to get going right away. And in viewing the graphs of each 6-year implement in time frame, going back to 1995, in every time frame, there are large gaps between what was planned and what was completed. MPAC wants that to get better, and they really want this to change. Get rid of this gap thing. The last topic was something that he mentioned as well, which is the Portland Expo Future Project. Staff has narrowed down the review of the best uses for the site. As he mentioned, they want to keep still the convention venues and that sort of thing, that kind of stuff that they normally have there. But they are really looking at it being a sports-centered visitors venue, attracting sports tourism at all levels. You know, from the minor league to the high school, great, whatever.
Great.
Really good developing that. And we also want to honor the historical significance of the site and increase the awareness of the site's history as it relates to the Black and Japanese communities and also Indigenous people. So that was MPAC. Now my first JPAC meeting, which is the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation. So Metro staff presentation was on their state legislative agenda, with a reminder to everyone that this session is probably everyone's last chance for any changes to the ODOT tolling plans. There's currently 9 bills related to this topic that have been submitted. After discussion, JPAC members voted to send a letter to ODOT requesting that they extend the environmental assessment comment period for another 90 days. We don't know whether that happen or not. That letter will happen, whether ODOT will, whatever. So JPAC's workload for this year, things that will be following for this year, is that so they've requested project funding, which is the Interstate Bridge for $1 billion. The Great Streets Program, urban arterials, $100 million has been requested, and a $300 million has been requested for the Burnside Bridge. Other projects they'll be following is developing a zero ignition policy, rail service improvements and extensions, transportation safety and security. And the last item that was discussed was a conversation concerning the extension of the Portland streetcar line up to Montgomery Park.
Oh.
And the idea up in Northwest Portland, the idea there is they want to develop a new district with businesses and affordable housing adjacent to streetcar line. They're looking at this to be maybe a 20-year project, but they are working on the extension now. That whole idea. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
That is very interesting.
So that is it for the 2 committees I'm following.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll stay on Metro since, you know, Rosenthal was here and we're all in. So, one of the things the Metro Council is looking at right now is not the thing everyone likes, but waste fees. So they're really gonna, it sounds like they're gonna take a deep dive because they have 5 areas that they're looking at right now. One is just charge for the cost of service, maintain existing fees, or raise fees so they set a cap at 8%. So raise fees to that 8% ceiling, freeze a regional system fee, or just change the whole fee structure. That would be sounds like a pretty massive undertaking to do that, but so those are the kind of the 5 areas that they're looking at on waste. And that's really all I had for Metro. And then I think I've said it before, a lot of social media happening, you know, do your own research, find things, get your facts, don't get facts that are put out there by entities that didn't produce the facts. I had items thrown in my yard and my neighbor's yard, some flyers. So now not only are they putting it on social media, but they're just throwing it out on the streets and in our yards. I thought I had, someone maybe had dropped trash, but it wasn't. So
Was this the information about the expansion
this
that's
was the
on
one that
flyer?
said Shakespeare is going to be connected
that's right.
to River Road, which it's not. Shakespeare dead ends at 136. So, and then the changing of Fisher to more of some kind of, so please just get facts from the website, KingstonTerraceMasterPlan.com, come talk to us or, on things like that. So, that's pretty much all I have.
Thank you. Micah, yeah, unless you want me to, I can go quickly if you want.
No, it's fine. I'll just bring up the last time, PAB meeting, Policy Advisory Board for CBDG, Community Development Block Grants. Approved the draft action plan for 2023, and we approved a contingency request for Bank Street improvements. So the City of Banks is getting some additional funds to help with their street improvements. And I am going to continue to try and advocate for, along with Mike, for hopefully some funds that are some grant funds that could potentially be used for assisting our Garden Villas citizens. So
great.
Hopefully more to come on that at some point once that program is, they've started the program, but is not yet fully underway. Okay.
Awesome.
So let's see, WACA, you might be interested, or you all might be interested. They're doing a ribbon cutting on Monday for their new facility. Are you gonna be at that?
What time on Monday?
I think it's at 11. I just pulled it up.
Okay.
They had some different time frames.
I know, it was a little confusing.
It's very confusing how
They're
they do
doing
that.
tours of the facility as well, so it's kind of an all afternoon event.
Oh, okay.
But it says, you're invited to join us at 11. So, okay, tours will be provided in small groups beginning at 9 and continuing until 3 p.m.
Oh, okay.
We'll stop the tours during the ribbon cutting event, but it doesn't specify, but I think what it's saying is 11 a.m. is the ribbon cutting.
Okay.
But I can forward this to
Yeah, would you forward it to me? Cool. All right.
So that's exciting. So, basically, every meeting that we have, it's kind of been talking about their new facilities, approving supplemental budgets for things that have come up and, changes and things like that. One exciting thing, well, I thought it was exciting, is that when I joined WACA, I don't know, a year or so ago as a representative from King City, we didn't have like any power to vote on anything. And I found it a little bit frustrating because basically the small cities in WACA are represented by one voting member.
Mm-hmm.
And if that city, their representative doesn't attend the meeting, then there's no one that gets to vote. So I got that changed, and so now King City is the voting member.
Nice. Congratulations, and
So
thank
we're
you.
voting member.
All
We have a
right.
voice, we're a seat at the table representing.
And that changes once we trigger that 1% of radio usage
Right.
and stuff. So when we have to pay more money, we become an individual vote instead of a vote for, was it 4 cities? I think it's North Plains, King City. Yeah, so it'll change eventually. I'm not in a hurry to pay $30,000 extra, but.
That's significant.
Right, right.
Able to do that.
Yeah. But how frustrating if the rep isn't there on behalf of the small cities and there's a vote to be made. That's
Right. So I'd be sitting there going,
yeah. You're like,
well,
yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
So, with a lot of back and forth and talking to the right people,
Cool.
we were officially appointed the voting member for representing small cities.
Awesome.
That was kind of cool. Let's see, last month I went to League of Oregon Cities President's Regional Meeting, and they just talked about their strategic plan for the next 5 years that they've been working on for the last 5 years, probably. I don't know.
Probably, right.
So that was just really interesting information to hear. And then next week, I'm going to the conference at Seaside on Monday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'll probably stop at the Lafayette building on my way to Seaside. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's all I have.
Great, well, thank you. So just kind of continuing on that, so the U.S. Conference of Mayors I showed you, Mayor Dennis of Eugene, along with Mayor of Hillsborough, kind of brought U.S. Conference of Mayors here. It was really fascinating because it was wonderful to get all these mayors in the room to talk and talk with our kind of federal Oregon delegation staff, right? But we went around the room and talked about what are the, you know, the most 2-3 pressing issues for your city. And I can tell you, every single mayor in that room said land use, transportation, infrastructure, and then some form of, you know, funding, either frustration with obtaining federal funding or, you know, all of the red tape that goes into it, how to streamline it, not access, you know, no access to it, and so forth, right? And out of that conversation was shared some kind of thought processes on how to work closer with the staff of, you know, Wyden's office and, you know, everyone to try to streamline a little bit of this process. And I guess there is kind of help out there for staffers to help on some federal grant funding. And so I think it's going to be really fast. I think this trip to DC is going to pay off in multiple ways for Mike and I, because there is this real push, I think, collectively in Oregon to make accessing dollars, especially for smaller communities, easier, quicker, less staff intensive, and so forth. So we'll report back on all of that. In kind of the fun, so besides all, you know, you all know I do a ton of meetings and I don't really report on all of those meetings because we would be here for hours. So I attended all my meetings that I go to regularly, and everything's going well in those arenas, right? But the fun things to report on, right? So Deer Creek Elementary School is currently having their online auction. It is also open until Saturday at 9 p.m. And King City has a shining, fabulous experience that we have put in, and I thank Mike for working with me on this. So on May 24th, we will have a student council come here. So the winners, 7 winners of the auction item at Deer Creek, there will be 7 students. We have recommended 4th and 5th graders. I think 3rd grade could be appropriate if the kids are mature enough, but really we should have 7th, 3rd, or 4th graders come here on May 24th. We're going to give them a tour of City Hall, a tour of the police station. They're going to come here, sit here. They are going to have to elect amongst themselves a council president and a mayor. We will have some community volunteers come and present community issues to them that they will then have to discuss and put forth motions on and make decisions on, and then we'll have a little party afterwards. And so it's going to be wonderful, and I think it was a great way for us as a city to kind of support the school. Along with that, also, I have this great idea that I've just decided to try to gobble up all of the artwork that's in the auction so that we can have some artwork here in City Hall from the school, and I think we should just kind of do that every year as a practice. And then I thought it would be a great way to maybe get some community art and give it to like Senator Woods and maybe Courtney Naron for their offices in Salem. I think that would be great. So I'm going to continue to work on that, and I will get back to you guys with that. Speaking of Courtney Naron, she is working very hard this legislative session to get us dollars. She's trying very hard to fund a new track down at the park. I think everyone is aware of how difficult this session is with dollars. I mean, it just, you know, so we are not going to hold our breath, but we have not received state funding through Rep. Naron's office previously. So they have to say yes at some point. So maybe this will be the year. Moving on to another event on Flag Day. which I believe is June 19th. June 14th, thank you, I apologize. Dave Runyon came to me last month, and our city flag was deteriorated and needed to be replaced. So then we started having a conversation about having some type of flag replacement ceremony, and then also how do we appropriately dispose of flags in the city and so on. So that led us, Dave and I, to organize an event with the King City Girl Scouts, who are going to come and do a flag ceremony. We are in the process of working out the time frame because per flag, I don't say regulations, but tradition, you should retire your flag at the end of the day, not during the day, and that makes it a little bit challenging for timing. So we're working out the timing and all of that. But what we have decided to do is the Girl Scouts will do changing the flag, folding of the flag, retiring of the flag that we have. We'll put up the new flag. But then they also are going to make themselves available to the community so that the community can come and dispose of the flags properly that if they have any at home. So we will get out some flyers ahead of time to let kind of the community know that if they have a tattered flag at home, to come bring it. The Girl Scouts will fold it appropriately and then take it to be burned, which is the way that you are supposed to dispose of the flag. The 4th of July, my favorite topic, and I'm glad Viva has held on with us, right? So the King City Community Foundation has started their planning, and this year, very similar to the years past, so the event will be kind of up and running. We do kind of need a decision on, funding, and I don't know, Mike, is that already, I mean, it should be in our budget each year, but
We have it in like, council special budget.
and so, for fundraising purposes, I know that the foundation is going to need to know if we will commit to that. I obviously can't, I will step away from this conversation, but I think we will need, do we need is it already approved, or do we need some type of approval to?
Ask.
We need an ask. Viva asked $1,000. Yeah,
She did?
she did, earlier today. She came.
Does that need to be done as an official agenda item on our?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
round-
so like.
Probably an
okay,
email
perfect.
from the foundation so we can put it on the
Right.
agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we take Viva's, so that we don't make extra work, since she came and presented here to the council tonight, can you then just put it on the agenda for next meeting? She doesn't have to
It'd be nice to have some sort of like
official ask in writing. Okay. All right, so Viva will do that.
I don't know if we had 1,000 or we had like 500. I'll check.
We'll have, yeah, we can look into that. One thing that I heard that the foundation is thinking about is possibly making the rental of golf carts to community members who want to create their own float in the parade may be available this year. So we will watch this space and see, but I think that would be very fun to have a parade, lots and lots and lots of decorated golf carts in the parade. Then I wrote down dates to talk about, and I don't know why, so I'm gonna just leave it with that, and that's it. And, Smart, do you have, anything that you want to update us with?
Can you hear me? Can you
Oh,
hear me?
we can hear you. Hi, Smart. Yes.
All right. Hi, thank you, Ronnie. Yes, again, sorry for not being there in person, just trying to stay as far away as possible, but good news is like I didn't test positive for anything, so I'm good. Just common cold, I just need to take care of myself. So I appreciate you accommodating me tonight to join virtually. And yeah, I did not have anything much to share because the only meeting I attended was the Water Advisory Board. but they had technical issues, and so I wasn't able to join them virtually because I had another meeting that I wasn't able to make it into that meeting in person. And so I'm still waiting for them to send me the agenda, the minutes from the meeting. But I think from what we're all seeing with the rain and the weather still prolonging the way it is right now, I don't think there's any concern for water levels and anything else. And most of the improvements that have been made to the water system is still ongoing. They were supposed to provide a report at the meeting, but like I said, I wasn't able to join. But hopefully, when I get the minutes, I can share that during the next meeting. And I also joined the planning commission when they had the open discussion that they had everyone come. I think it was very interesting. Mike and everyone coordinated and led that very well. I think it was very good for us to have it open to the public for everyone to come and participate in the process and how we do our business. I mean, we're just making sure that everyone has a chance to come and be part of what we do and contribute to what we do. So again, I think Mike and the team did a great job for putting that together. And that's all I have today, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Osholi. The last thing I thought, Mike and I went to, I just forgot this, Mike and I went to meet with Dr. Sue and other executives from TTSD to talk about long-term strategy, goal setting, planning, and the district has some big plans in the future that we aren't ready to kind of share. They aren't ready to kind of share. But what was really great is just kind of the commitment to partnering with us, TTSD, obviously, as we do, really value our partnership with them. So they are kind of looking, it's a little bit difficult, right? Because some of the numbers that they have, that they've been to look kind of backwards for, they have to look backwards at numbers for forward planning. And obviously the last couple of years numbers are skewed because of COVID. And so that is causing some difficulty with them. Last night I did attend there's 3 positions on TTSD's board. So I went to the candidate forum last night that was held, and that was interesting to listen to all the candidates. And so I encourage everyone to kind of follow those elections closely, just because it's there's some very polarizing candidates, right? So it's kind of, as you can imagine, there's just some really diverse thoughts, politics, and so anyway, so it's interesting, and so that was a lot. That was one meeting we forgot about, but they're doing some good strategy and planning. They're looking closely at our planning and our strategy, and I think they're excited about our plans. And Dr. Sue has said that she would come and testify at our public hearings if we wanted to, because she wants to help support King City. So we might have to take her up on that gracious offer. I'm sure she was, anyway. So with that, unless there's anything else, we can all go home with the motion.
Move we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Aye. All right. It is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. All right.
You guys, now the meeting's over, I did want to say, there is a recycle event for electronics tomorrow.
Oh.
The Lincoln Center, across the street from Washington Square, behind Children's